conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Wednesday, the middle of the week, halfway to the weekend. That's when we like to hear from our friend the Camel. Play it, man.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Indeed it is. Yes, indeed. It is hump day. You're halfway to the weekend, my friends. We will get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. In the meantime, it's the middle of the week, and JP's on the board. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Feels... I can't believe it's already Wednesday.
This is the wackiest week.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know what day it is until I have to come in here and look at the calendar.
Yeah. Well, at around 2:06 every day is when I find out what day it is. So.
By what sound effect I tell you to
Yeah,
push, right?
Yeah.
All right, we got a great show laid on for you. You know the deal. We play the Camel at the beginning of the show on midweek hump day, and that means at the beginning of hour number 3, we jump into a thing we like to call the Grand Council, where I bring in 2 of my brethren who are out there in media world. Today, it's going to be Jeff Poor and our buddy Scotty Buttram from the Trustful Tribune. So, yeah, Jeff Poor, Scott Buttram, Grand Council at beginning of hour number 3. And then there's a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Coming out the gate, first one, I'm calling it political haymakers. Things that are happening in elections. Like, are Democrats seeing a mandate? Are they gaining ground? What do we know? I'll tell you all about it. Political haymakers, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I didn't get to it yesterday, but I'm getting to it today. In fact, we're going to add to it. Leftist lies about Tom Homan. The left is determined right now for you to believe that somehow or another the entire Trump administration is corrupt. Everybody's on the take, to include Tom Homan. Couldn't have anything to do with the fact that he's very, very successful with, illegal immigration being enforced. Could that be it? Anyway, we're talking about leftist lies about Homan. And we'll have some breaking news about what's going on with ICE today. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, did you see Trump go to the UN yesterday? Listen, this was just nothing but enjoyable. And it was so much passive aggressive stuff being thrown at him. We'll talk about that in detail, but then we'll also talk about what he said as he stared them down and said things they did not want to deal with. Trump at the UN, that's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys, as always, that attorney Stan McDonald is indeed the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, 30-year veteran of practicing law in Alabama, and oh, by the way, a longtime conservative, sponsor of the Rightside Way. I'll tell you more about Stan in a minute. So let me just start off by saying I once had a friend that told me that she didn't believe in politics. Okay, fine. I mean, I choose to believe that donuts don't make me gain weight, but they do anyway, whether I choose to believe it or not. But she didn't believe in politics. Well, that friend actually went a bit further. She told me that she had a jaded view of politics and politicians overall, and I can get that. But then she told me her silent form of protest was to deliberately not vote. To which I replied that she had abdicated her right to complain then. In other words, you get in the game or you stay out of the way. But don't complain later if you chose to sit it out and didn't like the score. You see, my friend's problem was she was so busy seeking the perfect that she forgot to appreciate the good. There's no such thing as a perfect politician. There's no such thing as perfect politics. You know why? Because there's no such thing as perfect people. But there are good ones. And that's the point. At the same time I talk about that, I find myself sometimes, though, amazed at the extent to which people will do what I call majoring in the minors. I mean, there are literally people right now that will base all their thoughts and emotions on one singular aspect, one question, one policy in politics. And when those single issue people don't get their way, I mean, after putting all their eggs in one basket, they lash out. Don't like the idea that transgenders are being banned from girls' locker rooms? Let's have a freak out. Don't like the idea that U.S. supports Israel's rights to exist? Lash out. Don't like spending, not spending, overspending, underspending, spending about spending? Everybody's corrupt. All politicians on the take. No kidding. I mean, you can't be a single issue voter, because if that's the case, then you are letting the quest for the perfect outweigh the good. I remember once going to a high school football game. I've got an analogy here. Bear with me. I went to a high school football game. You see, my kids went to Westbrook Christian, which is a large private school in Northeast Alabama. Westbrook's always had great athletics. That's where Brody Crowell came from. Westbrook made it to the state playoffs that year. And we traveled to a game in Parrish, Alabama, over in Walker County. And it was a close game, y'all. Fans were cheering loud on both sides. Westbrook had the ball on 4th down deep in Parrish territory, down by 5 on the scoreboard with seconds to play in the 4th quarter. Everything was down to one play. The pass was up, and it was incomplete. The crowd on Parrish's side went wild, but then there was a flag on the play. Pass interference, 15-yard penalty, first down. Less than 10 seconds on the clock. There's a snap. The near side receiver caught the screen. Touchdown, Westbrook. No time left on the clock. Westbrook wins by 1 point. And then, as we all watched in amazement, a man that came down out of the stands from the Parrish side, he ran out on the field, and he literally sucker punched the head referee. Just cold cocked him and knocked him on the ground right there in front of everybody. Well, the Parrish side, they were apoplectic. There were shouts at the Westbrook fans. There were threats being yelled. And of course, one of the referees had just been knocked down with a punch to the face. Westbrook players were ushered to their locker room. The announcer came on. He asked that all the Westbrook fans remain in the stands for their own safety. Go figure. We sat in the stands for a good half hour or more before local law enforcement came and actually escorted us all out to our cars and asked that we caravan as a group together with the school bus full of players with police escort out of town. I've never seen anything like that before or since. But it was a clear indication to me, though, that a good game was not good enough. You see, some of the Parrish fans were demanding their version of perfection, and when they couldn't get it, they lashed out. The quest for the perfect outweighed all sense of the good. They didn't like the result, so somebody had to pay. That's where they were. Look, people too often get caught up in the trap of making the quest for the perfect the enemy of the good. It's a thing. It really is. We become purists, in which only the perfect version of what we seek is considered good enough and everything else is considered failure. And now, look, there's something to be said for making an effort to achieve perfection. I get that. I'm the world's worst at putting my quest for the best possible solution on such a pedestal that anything else is considered a loss. But there are times in life we need to realize we may not ever achieve the ultimate version of our idea of success, but we will still have nonetheless succeeded if we will accept the fact that sometimes the good is great. Case in point, not long ago, Charlene and I attended the annual Alabama Policy Institute dinner. It was a great night. We were able to share the evening with so many folks with whom we had served in state government or in the trenches fighting on conservative policy. And Scott Rasmussen, who was a nationally known pollster who was once the founder of ESPN, he was the keynote speaker. He gave a great speech. In the course of giving his speech, he also told a story. And that story, it really piqued my attention. I've actually told it to you before several years ago, but I got to bring it back up. I had to track it down to verify some of the facts, but it's fascinating. Many of you, if you were to do a quick search online or just from your own memory banks, would probably agree that women in America won the right to vote back in 1920 when the 19th Amendment was ratified. It was a landmark moment. The women's suffrage movement had been working feverishly for decades. So yes, in 1920, women were granted voting rights across America. But Rasmussen pointed out that many don't recall that women actually first obtained the right to vote in certain states that chose to act alone. And the very first among them was Wyoming. Wyoming. Yep. Wyoming, our 44th state, admitted to the Union in 1890. And despite having the 10th largest landmass of any state, it's still one of the least populated. And to this date, the total population of Wyoming is like less than 600,000. It's like Huntsville and Mobile with a little bit of Coleman thrown in. That's how big it is. But despite all the remoteness and the small population size, the then territory of Wyoming was actually the first to grant women the right to vote. They did it in 1869. So how'd that happen? All right, keep in mind what I'm talking about here, the quest for the perfect, the good. Well, Wyoming was a wilderness territory. It was not known to be a bastion of progressive public policy. And it turns out there were a few of the territorial legislators, though, who actually favored the idea of women having the vote. But the reality of why it got the votes for women is far less chivalrous. You see, the territorial governor of Wyoming at the time, in 1869, he thought that if they could pass a bill, it would give the state some notoriety. So he signed up for it. But one of the driving motivators was actually the fact that men just wanted women to move to Wyoming. I mean, you heard me. In 1869, the rough population of Wyoming was like 6,000 males, but only 1,000 females. So loneliness and the desire for female companionship actually drove the train, and the sincere hope of many of the male citizens of the Wyoming Territory to accede to the idea of women voting was simply by hoping that granting them the right to vote would draw more women to the state. The women's suffrage movement was less than enthused with this basis for their win. So the suffrage movement actually chose not to even fully embrace what happened in Wyoming. It was 50 years later, y'all, half a century later, before Congress actually passed the 19th Amendment. But I got to ask, was it wrong for the men of Wyoming to try and improve their odds of getting a spouse by passing an important piece of historic legislation? I mean, is it possible that what was deemed imperfect was actually really, really good? See, here's the thing. I believe that we as conservatives, we too often get caught in the trap of letting the quest for the perfect become the enemy of the good. We do. I've seen it firsthand. I can remember working on pro-life legislation, and there were times when the various factions of the pro-life movement could not even agree. It was all or none, ban it outright or lose it all. But y'all, if we could gain enough votes for 80% of the solution one time, as opposed to none of the votes for 100%, why would we not take the 80% win and save some children? I mean, to be honest, I'll tell you right now, I'm an all the way kind of person. I'm a 110%er. I don't believe in half measures, generally speaking. If I'm taking a test, my goal is to get 100%. And I have more than once pursued perfection in all my efforts, but rarely have I ever attained it. We should always strive for the best, but we should realize that an 80% solution might be what we're going to get. But let's don't let ourselves be like the women's suffrage movement who chose to look down on the victory in Wyoming because they didn't believe the motives behind it were pure enough somehow. It was a victory, pure and simple. Women were voting in Wyoming. It might not have been perfect, but it was really, really good. That football game in Parrish, you can't get so wrapped up in how you feel that you're willing to lash out when you don't get exactly what you want. It doesn't work that way in life. We can't let the quest for the perfect, whatever that means in our eyes, become the enemy of the good, and that includes politics. Sometimes the least bad option winds up being better. Sometimes the 80% solution is going to achieve the actual end. Never stop pursuing perfection. That's not what I'm saying. But don't ever let yourself be fooled by the notion that it has to be perfect in order to be good. We're in a mode right now where everyone who voted for Trump had their own reasons, and some are already becoming dissatisfied because their particular cause is not being met or not yet perfected. But me personally, I think it's going extremely well. I'm honest when I say that. But some are down on foreign policy or down on legislation or down on the DOJ not having enough perp walks or down on spending and budgeting. Look, you can be frustrated, but never forget where we were. By and large, I'll take what we got right now every single day of the week. It may not be perfect, but by comparison, it is really, really good. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, that's the thing, man. You can get so caught up in your idea of what the details could be, should be, would be, that you forget that even if you don't quite attain the absolute perfect, you can still have something that's really good. And when you compare it to what it could have been otherwise, Lord God, it's better. That's where we are right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. The interview we just had with Mike Durant, author of In the Company of Heroes, the pilot who was shot down in Black Hawk Down. He became a national icon, an international icon, really, as images of him being held captive in Somalia were transmitted around the world. The way he tells his story, though, is as amazing as his story. So sit back, enjoy your time, hear about things that you're going to think about for the rest of your life after this discussion we're going to have with Mike Durant on the Just Right podcast. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Hey, Mike Durant, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to have you. And listen, I'm going to run through just a quick intro of who you are so folks know who I got sitting across from me. All
Sure.
right? Some of this is going to be unpacked in more detail, but I know for a fact you were born in New Hampshire, but you call Alabama home, have for a number of years. 22 years active military. First enlisted, I think, in 79?
You got it.
Weren't you a Spanish linguist?
I was.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to speak Spanish. They taught us to, the school that I went to, the focus was to just be able to understand it, not speak it. So I can still understand a little bit, but I'm not a very good speaker.
Did some intercept work down there in Panama, right?
I did.
Yeah. I got family ties there. My grandfather was post commander. It was at Corzal, I think it was one of the, years ago. Became a warrant officer in 83. which I still don't understand the warrant officer mafia. I never knew whether you guys got saluted or what was going on with that. But anyway, warrant officer in 83, flight school, Fort Rucker. 5 years later, you were selected for the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail. 3 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star with a V device, Purple Heart, and fairly rare in modern times, a Prisoner of War medal. And then you retired as a CW4, am I right? Chief Warrant Officer 4?
That's correct. 2 DFCs.
2 DSCs. Yeah. Well, okay, just 2. Got your undergrad and your master's from Embry-Riddle, is that right?
That's correct.
And built a successful defense contracting firm, Pinnacle Solutions, which you've retired from now. And you're married, and most importantly, you've had 6 kids.
We do.
Got your own basketball team.
Yeah, with some bench.
Well, good enough. Well, hey, thanks for being on the Just Right podcast. Appreciate you.
Again, my pleasure. I do always enjoy time spent with you. I think, we certainly have some common history, and you get it. And it's kind of nice to talk to people who get it, because when you talk to people who don't get it, it's a little bit frustrating, and you got to get drilled down into areas you feel like it's tedious, but with you, that's not the case.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Yeah. And we'll have to make sure we don't slip into acronyms or something like that.
Well, that is easy to do, and then you can lose a lot of folks that way. But I've gotten pretty good at trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you this. I want folks to get to know who you are as much as your story, because your story is amazing. I've got your book sitting right here in the Company of Heroes. I read it years ago, and I've had a copy on my shelf. In fact, I think I told you before the show, my son nabbed it. He's stationed down at Benning, so he's got it with him, so I had to get another copy for today. But let me ask you, how did it start with you in the military? You're a kid in New Hampshire. Why the military? I mean, what happened there that said, that's where I want to lead my life?
So, I characterize myself as a blue-collar kid. I mean, working parents, we were certainly not poor, but we weren't really well off either, and never saw myself as necessarily college material. I did fairly well in school when I tried, but I wasn't necessarily motivated to go to college. And I lived in a paper mill town, and a lot of people went to work in the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that. That's, if that's what you want to do. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And when I was about 14, and it's about the time you start thinking about, what am I going to do when I get out of college? Doesn't keep you up at night, but, you start pondering that kind of stuff. I had a major turning point in my life. I went on a helicopter flight with a friend of the family.
No kidding.
His name is Joe Brigham. He was a warrant officer in the National Guard. He also had his own business. And as I found out later, I wasn't the only young teenager that he ever did this with. He took a few of us up that he wanted to try to inspire, and it absolutely impacted me. I mean,
no kidding.
We're flying over Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's 6,280 feet. We're basically hovering. The aircraft was kind of primitive by today's standards, I guess I would say. Is kind of a glass bubble. If you remember the MASH helicopters, similar to that. And it's like you're just floating in space. And I'm looking at, like, again, I'd flown on a small airplane before, but never anything like this experience. And I said, you could actually do this as a job? And he says, yeah.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Text lines are open. Some of y'all already figured that out. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. You can text it or call it. Same number for both. Let me just remind you, though, first of all, that Stan McDonald is indeed the sponsor daily of the Right Side Way monologue. Attorney Stan McDonald. Okay, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee, great firm out of Huntsville. 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He's also, oh, by the way, a multi-decade right side ruffian. I mean, the guy has been in the mix, in the fray, in the politics and policies that right side ruffians care about for years. That being said, I'll tell you right now, attorney Stan McDonald has literally represented his clients in thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. And I like to say, I always do, that Stan McDonald on your side, you'll have no greater friend. And likewise, though, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So here's the thing. You want an attorney in North Alabama? You may want Stan McDonald. And I'm going to tell you how to reach him. That's attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-533-0202. That's 256-533-0202. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that very much. And no representation made the quality legal services is any worse than anybody else's. In fact, I think it's better. I mean, I think it stands out. I think he's the guy. There you go. What do you think of that? Bam. Bam. How you like me now with my disclaimers? JP, have you ever heard anything like that story I told about parish football that day? Did you?
I've never personally experienced something like that, but I'm not surprised that something like that did happen.
Listen, that was craziness. I mean, so first of all, it was like something out of a movie because literally we lost the game except for the flag. So I understand Parish's angst, but it was their penalty and it was real. And it gave the first down and it put them in the red zone. And it basically meant they had one more shot at it and they got it.
That's brutal. I experienced something like that my sophomore year. We actually were playing Piedmont right down the road of where we are right now, which Piedmont is a powerhouse. And if we would have won that game, we would have made it to the state semifinals. And we lost by 1. We had 2 extra points blocked in that game. So I've been on the receiving end of brutal loss like that. But none of our fans went on the field and punched anybody.
That's the next piece, though. Yeah, there's that whole part of the story. That's why I
There's
told
that.
it. Guy literally comes out of the stands, and I'll never forget. The ref was down towards the goal line area where the play had just taken place, and blew the whistles. Everything's over. You know, he's doing the thing with the clock's done, and this guy comes down out of the stands, runs out on the field, walks up to the ref, and I see him like bow up and confront the ref, and the ref saying something to him, and all of a sudden, bam, he just punched him right in the face, knocks the guy to the ground.
I assume he got arrested.
I would assume, but there was a little bit of madness out there on the field for a while. It was like Keystone cops running around. Everybody's like going different directions. And yeah, we literally had all the fans on the Westbrook side. The PA comes on going, all Westbrook fans, we need you to please stay in the stands where you are. Please do not leave the stands for your own safety.
Please do not punch any refs or any other.
We weren't the
fans.
ones swinging punches. And all the players had to get escorted out. And then they literally escorted us all to our cars.
Wow. And
had the entire caravan of Westbrook plus the bus full of players escorted out of town with police escort. I mean,
hey, they did their due diligence, though. That's good.
Yeah, I'm glad. All right, there's the music. We're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
If you join the Army, they'll send you to flight training, and you could do this as a career. And I'm like, okay, if this is a possibility for me, yeah, I'll take it. And ultimately, when I got old enough, I went and talked to the recruiter. And you probably heard the joke, you know a recruiter's line because their lips are moving. They have a quota. They're trying to fill certain slots.
Sure.
And there are programs that are available sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And he told me, sorry, but flight school program's not available for people coming right in off the street. You're going to have to join the military first, and then you can apply for flight school afterwards, which is all correct. But I didn't really know whether he was telling me the truth about, could I have applied to go directly to flight school? But either way, and another smart thing I did, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have made some good decisions along the way, is I spoke to someone else about joining the military, and I think you and Jared had talked about this, or he did, and you don't want to just go join the military, right? There has to be a purpose to it. I mean, serving the country is noble and it's great, and we need people to do that. But for you as an individual, you should also be thinking about, what can I do with this in the life after the military?
Sure, absolutely.
And I was offered to go to, as we discussed before we got on camera, the Spanish language school in Monterey, California, to be in military intelligence. And how marketable is that? I don't know. But, I was convinced that, well, they'll send me to school for a year to learn Spanish. I'll be a military intelligence analyst. that's probably something worth
sexy.
Worth something, yeah. and then I can possibly apply for flight school. Okay, we'll go ahead and sign this. And it was one of those cases where I had gone off to talk to the recruiter on my own, and then came back to the house. I'd already signed the paperwork. My parents had not been informed at all, and they were kind of shocked, right? But I said, I think this sounds like a pretty good deal. Let's give it a try. And then I was stunned by the reality of basic training. I just,
no kidding.
I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I just wasn't.
But who really is?
Yeah, I guess no one is.
That's back when drill sergeants could be drill sergeants.
Yes, I mean it was quite a lifestyle change. Is all I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living in an open barracks with 20 guys that you've never met before from all over the country. They treat by design. They treat you like crap, right? I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of the other military training that goes on, but it's going from a high school kid with long hair and concert T-shirts on and didn't care about anything except girls and some sports. This is a radical lifestyle change, and I at that point was thinking I have made a mistake. This is not what I thought it was going to be, and I don't know what I did think it was going to be, but it certainly shocked me to the point where I was thinking about, I don't know if I can get out of this, but if I can, I need to.
Well, was there anybody in your life like you had this warrant officer from the Guard who gave you the flight in the helicopter? But did you have any military in your family? I mean, was there anything watching it as you grew up? Like my family's been generational Army, so my son watched 3 generations before him do stuff, and then he wanted to do it.
Right.
But did you have anything like that?
They were in the Guard. My uncles were in the Guard.
All
My
right.
father was in the Guard. But to me, that's different. I mean, you just sort of see him, go once a month. Not that the Guard isn't a great,
No,
organization, but it's just
it wasn't a full life.
right. And you still live at home. Unless you get deployed, obviously. But it was. I wasn't prepared. And I was, again, to the point where if I could get out of this, I need to, and was convinced that I should stay by the drill sergeant, and I did. And at that point, got like super motivated. I got like the PT award, physical training award of the whole class, and in basic training, I scored the highest, and just really got motivated that, okay, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can. And then I went on to language school, advanced individual training, where they teach you how to actually do what you're on contract to do. And then I went to Panama, and that's where my assignment was. And I'm at that point, probably an E3 enlisted private.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side of Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. It's right across the line from there to, once again, what we call Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. By golly. And that's just the radio. That's just the radio footprint. Then there's all y'all out there who live streaming, looking at us on audio and video. That's, oh, by the way, in places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, a whole bunch of you do that. Look, we know it. I say all that every time because I sincerely want you to know, A, we can see where you catch it because we get the numbers. And then B, the fact that you do means the world to us. There's no other reason for us to do this except for y'all. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate you. Text lines are open, and then I'm going to talk about some breaking news. Mike from Chattanooga says, it's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. He says, we in America do not have a government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate. That's a good quote. I think he's responding to the first part of my monologue where I talked about a friend of mine who was so disenfranchised, she just refused to vote. And I'm like, well, then you get what you get. I'm sorry, you're out of luck.
There's too many people that died for our right
That's
to vote.
exactly
I feel
right.
like it's just a little bit of a disrespect to that, to not vote.
It really is. It's also a cheap excuse. I understand something happens and you can't get to the polls, you're sick, whatever else. Other than that, you need to get there.
That's one thing. My grandfather, if he was able to walk, he was going to vote whenever he could. And I think it's important.
Absolutely important. Yep. Sure enough. Mike from Arab checking in said, "Hey, fellas, followed you on X." Thank you, sir. Tells me his handle. I appreciate it. He said it's my third account because of the Biden administration. Wow. Yeah, we got a major decision yesterday, which I was going to talk about today, and I had some other content came up instead that I decided to make my dippers out of. But Google did come out yesterday with a huge mea culpa, and it admitted that they have been censoring for the last few years. You saw that, I guess, didn't you?
I did. I'm interested to see if that applies to everybody or if they hand select a certain few of like, well, you're still too bad, but maybe you can come back. But we're keeping an eye on you.
No doubt. I listen. I got put in the penalty box several times on old Twitter and Facebook. Facebook, we were locked out. We just got the Facebook page back. This year, right?
Yeah, it was not too long ago.
We got a Facebook page right now with 6,000 something followers on it. And we couldn't get to it for the longest time and then all of a sudden mysteriously we were able to get to it again.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da! Trump got elected and bam, I had a Facebook page again. Alex Mathis says, "Colonel Williams, thank you for busting me. Thank you for busting me." He said, "I'm way too guilty." Oh, there you go. "Way too often of letting the quest for the perfect jettison any real lasting progress. I appreciate this more than I could say." Thank you, my friend. You're good at what you do. John from Harvest says, "Someone at the UN played stupid games with the escalator and teleprompter." Oh, I'm going to talk about it. Don't worry. Said, "I'm sure they thought they were being cute, but they just unleashed Trump, who was as a very good extemporaneous speaker, and it was a sight to behold." Yes, indeed. They got the unvarnished version because they chose to try and stymie his ability. They forgot they didn't have Joe Biden up there anymore. They had a guy who didn't need a teleprompter. John from Huntsville says, "Phil, fantastic monologue. Thank you. Also, did you hear that the guy who attempted to assassinate Trump at the Florida golf course tried to stab himself after he was found guilty?" I did. He says, "But what's the next part? Oh, by the way, JP, did you see that the baseball player last night got hit in the face with a 99-mile-per-hour fastball? It actually came off his bat. He was trying to bunt, and it come off his bat."
Yeah.
Right in the face, though.
That is the biggest fear of any baseball player is bunting with somebody who can throw it fast. Stuff like that could happen.
99 miles per hour.
Yeah, that could break some teeth, break some, bones.
By the way, is he in the hospital? What's the deal?
Actually, I haven't seen an update on that.
I haven't either. I did see the video last night, though, and he went down.
Yeah.
And it really kind of rocked the pitcher too. Was it? Skakel?
I can't remember, but yeah,
the
pitcher threw his glove down and put his hands over his head. Clearly not intentional, but that's just
no. I mean, the pitcher didn't have anything to do with
it.
Yeah. He put it right down the pipe, but the guys, it just came off his bat funny.
Yeah.
Jeff from Indiana says, "You're wrong, Phil. Not everyone needs to vote. If you're hopefully uneducated about politics and who's running, please do not vote." Jeff from Indiana. Aaron or Lewis from Trinity says, "Apparently the opposing team caused the ruckus, did not realize there was a mighty okay, a ranger, I think he meant, in the house who would have considered it a warm-up. Go Army." Yeah, it was. Listen, the hair was standing up in the back of my neck. Let's put it that way. Aaron from Madison says, "How do you think things are stacking up for the midterm elections here in Alabama? Do you think the Republicans or Democrats are more fired up? In Alabama, I think we're good. In Alabama, I think we're fine. I don't anticipate losing any ground in Alabama. My concern are some of the purple states, what's going to happen in places like Virginia, Arizona, and what's going to happen with the redistricting pieces. Are they going to stand up in Texas, and what are they going to do in California? So there are places where I'm concerned, and we only have, I think now, a 6-vote margin to work with in the House. But I will say this coming midterm next year, if I'm not mistaken, is considered to be more hazardous for the Democrats in the Senate than it is in the House, or than the Republicans, because they have more of what they call lean seats and open seats than they ever would have wanted at this time. So stand by, more to come. A week is a lifetime in politics, and we got well over a year. So it's going to be interesting. All right, hey, I got to talk about some breaking news. All right, so I want to get your text messages done and honor the fact that y'all participate in the show too. But we just had a story break. What, in the last couple hours, JP? When did it break?
Like first thing this morning.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was early this morning.
So if you're not familiar, I will tell you that at an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, a detention facility, apparently a shooter got up on I guess he was on a rooftop or something across the way.
He was on a rooftop across the street.
Yeah. And some reports say he began firing indiscriminately into the ICE facility. He killed 2 detainees. We're talking about illegal aliens. He killed 2 detainees. Well, the story I've got says 2.
Oh, did somebody else must have passed away since?
Yeah, I've got right now that there are 2 deaths and 1 injured. And maybe that's not true, but there's at least 1 death. But it's pretty awful. Now, here's the thing. The first question was, what were the motivations? Why did he do this? Why is he shooting up an ICE facility? Well, the left is immediately out there with the narrative that this was a radical right-winger who's out there trying to kill illegal aliens. If that was the case, he can go to a Home Depot parking lot and do the job a lot easier. But the truth is, that's what they're going with because they're desperate to not be lumped in once again with violent extremism. However, what we know right now is that the FBI is on the scene, and in the shooter apparently took his own life. So I think he is dead, and shell casings found at the site have anti-ICE stuff written on them. So it's not likely that it's going to wind up being a right-winger. JP, you said you also saw evidence of his postings on Facebook or something, right?
Yeah, well, Laura Loomer, who is like the vetting master of finding stuff out, she apparently found his Facebook page that had Antifa things on it, and apparently his profile picture was a guy with a gun with a hammer and sickle flag in the background. So this was a communist guy, apparently, which my best bet is a communist guy who doesn't like ICE and is a bad shot and was shooting at ICE officers indiscriminately and hitting detainees and then taking his own life. That's the story. But of course, the fact that he killed detainees instead of ICE officials makes the left think that he was trying to shoot immigrants and that the anti-ICE writings of the bullets were planted by the Cash Patel FBI because they can't be trusted. It's like, which one seems a bit more believable here?
Yeah, let's see. Do I trust the FBI under Cash Patel's leadership and the Trump administration, or do I trust the left-wing pundits who desperately want it to be something else?
Yeah, and I'm sure this guy was such a master, good shot, and he meant to shoot detainees. Like, come on, seriously?
Okay, the shooter's name, Fox just said this. The shooter's name is Joshua John, Jahn, Joshua John. And the headline on Fox now reads that there are 2 dead, 1 wounded. But it says, who is Joshua John, or Jan, I'm trying to pronounce, shooter in the deadly ICE facility attack? And it goes on to say, sources familiar with the investigation identified his name as Joshua John. He's 29 years old. He killed 2 detainees, injured another after opening fire on an ICE facility from a nearby building before taking his own life. The detainee who survived was hospitalized in critical condition. John, it says, fired indiscriminately at the ICE building as well as at a van in the Sallyport where the victims were shot. The Department of Homeland Security said the 3 detainees were in an unmarked transport van when they were shot, and then John took his life. It was around 7 a.m. this morning. Okay, I didn't know that. He was found dead with a rifle. The rounds that I see look like they are 5.56 rounds, so I'm assuming he was firing an AR or some kind of platform like that. And is there anything else about his identity here? Let's see. No, but not that I could see in this particular article. But I will tell you this, Senator Tuberville and Katie Britt of Alabama have both already issued statements on it. Senator Tuberville said, praying for the victims involved in this attack and their families, the radical left must stop the demonization of our law enforcement, specifically ICE and Border Patrol. Yes. And then Katie Britt, Senator Britt said, please join me in praying for the victims, their families, and all of our law enforcement officers while we wait on more information to be released. At this point, it's clear this is another disgusting attack on our courageous ICE officers. Secretary Noam and FBI Director Cash Patel, and I'm sorry it got cut off, so I got to reopen it to see, have my full support for any resources needed to stop this political violence. Okay. The left's rhetoric is inflammatory. Don't think for a second that people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and name them, Elizabeth Warren, the Mayor Karen Bass of LA, Gavin Newsom, don't think for a second that their inflammatory rhetoric doesn't in some way influence people who are already on the fringe. It does. It's almost like giving them a pass. It's like saying, yeah, I got to stop it because they're horrible people. Why? Because the voices that I listen to tell me they're horrible people. They're law enforcement. They are law enforcement. They are wearing the badge. They have sworn an oath to protect and defend. They are just as dedicated to their job as any other law enforcement officer of any department, whether it be local, state, or federal. And the idea that we're going to continue to demonize or allow the demonization of men and women who serve ably to protect and support and to enforce the laws, it's just absolutely, it's to me, it's to the point of almost being criminal in itself. That rhetoric. Listen, you bear some responsibility for your words. You can say what you want. You have a First Amendment right, but you also bear some responsibility for your words. And you can't go out there and continue to malign people and not expect that your rhetoric is going to have some measure of impact. And you know what? Now that I said that, some of them that are saying these things, maybe that's the impact they want. Just to be honest with you, I'm so beyond some of their rhetoric that I'm thinking that this type of inflammatory rhetoric, that they know what's going to happen and they do it anyway.
Well, and I know we got to take a break, but I'll just say this. I mean, Gavin Newsom literally yesterday was bragging about how he had a law passed in the California state legislature that bans ICE from wearing masks. Can you think of why they want to wear masks? Because they get doxxed and some people want to go and shoot them just like this guy did.
Yeah.
And, there's also Tim Walz saying that ICE is acting as the modern day Gestapo. It's like, guys, people listen to you and they take up arms because of what you're saying. So maybe you should tone it down just a hair, just a little bit.
Just a bit. Just a bit. All right, we'll track that story. If more comes out during the show, we'll break in and let you know. In the meantime, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back.
Working in a military intelligence unit. And coincidentally, run across Manuel Noriega in the parking lot.
In the parking lot?
Because he was an
was
MI
there a food
guy.
truck and y'all were standing in line together or what?
No, but he was a military intelligence guy. So I was in a military intelligence unit. And at the time, he's only probably a major or whatever. But he was already pretty well known. And he showed up and he obviously very easy individual to identify.
You were there later.
And then years later, we go back and bag him. But anyway, so I'm kind of enjoying this military intelligence job. And then one day I'm sitting on the beach, and I know this is a really long answer to your original question, but I'm sitting on the beach and these three Hueys fly low level right over the top of us with shooters in the back and their legs out the door. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I really want to do that. And so it sort of re-energized me. I applied for flight school and I got in. Had I not gotten into flight school, I probably would have separated from the military because I did like it, but I felt like there was something more. But getting to flight school was then a game changer.
All right, so you got to flight school. So warrant officer candidate, become a warrant officer. What W01, I guess. Go to flight school as a W01.
No, what's different today is that you actually get commissioned as a W1 pretty early in the pipeline. Back then, you didn't get it until you were done flight school. So you go through as a warrant officer candidate. And what it does is it changes your date of rank is what it really does. I mean, you're still treated like, you're an idiot, whether you're a W1 or not, but your data rank changes. Yeah.
You guys, I made the joke earlier about the warrant officer mafia.
Yeah.
Y'all are as warrant officers, you're technicians, you're technical specialists. You have niche, basically skills and knowledge, but you're also this kind of in between that folks who are junior in rank or junior as officers always look at you like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Right.
Can I tell you what to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And but y'all kind of ride in the middle a lot of times, it seems like.
And we're the ones that keep everything running.
And you are the ones who keep everything running.
Yeah.
There's the backbone of the Army and the NCO Corps, and then there's y'all that keep things running.
Right.
But all right, so you became a warrant officer. You went to flight school down at Fort Rucker, which is now called Fort Rucker again soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
But coming up, and we were talking about your raisings, so to speak, up there in New Hampshire. We're going to go forward into your story here in a few minutes. But what about being raised, where you were, who you were with, whatever else? What do you think instilled things in you that you wind up needing later on? Like, Was it sports? Was it family? Was it faith? What did you see in your life that you looked later on like, I'm glad I had that because it built me up?
Yeah, faith is certainly part of it. Now, my faith journey had its ups and downs, and the lowest point probably being post Somalia, when looking back at what happened there, based on what we were trying to do, it could, in my mind, there was no justification for the horrors that occurred there, and I couldn't accept it because it was horrible. I mean, there's not a lot of things I've witnessed that were as bad as what happened there, and we were there for all the right reasons. So anyway, but faith is certainly part of who I am, and it's come full circle. I think playing sports helped a lot too.
Was it hockey?
I played hockey. I played football. I mean, I wasn't great, but I played, and you learn about working and teamwork and your role in the organization to make the overall team a success. And those things to me are invaluable if you can learn them when you're young. So I think a combination of all those things.
Good enough. It's amazing sometimes what we draw on later. You don't even realize you've got it now. I can remember things as a kid that I didn't know that I grumbled about, and then later on you realize that instilled something.
Yeah.
So you went on though to do some pretty amazing stuff. So in the world of aviation, Army aviation, the 160th, which you're wearing the shirt right now.
I am wearing the shirt.
You are wearing the shirt.
By design.
Night Stalkers. So the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. I remember when I first got in, we called them Task Force 160.
Right.
But you guys were the premier Special Operations rotary wing guys. And how did you? I've never heard what is like. I know what selection is like to go to Ranger School. I know what selection is like to go to the Q course for Special Forces. But there's a selection process to go to the 160th. Am I right?
No, yeah. It's very similar, actually.
All right. So tell me about that.
So when I first found out about the unit,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. We're going to talk about several things today. And if you want to call in, or text in, the number is 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Let me tell you what, let me get a couple of text messages. I see one here. That one's not on the topic, so I'll change it. Shane from Harvest says, these are the same people that say President Trump caused an insurrection from what he said January 6th. It's evil gaslighting people. I've heard the toxic leadership, but this is ridiculous. That's a great point. It absolutely is. I gotta tell you too, just one funny thing I can't pass this up. I'm seeing it right now on social media. It's kind of hilarious, but I don't know if you've seen, like, Trump is basically redecorating the White House in many ways, putting his stamp on things.
Just a hair.
A little. Yeah, he's got his style. He's got his way. It's his office. So hey, but one of the things he did was on that covered portico walk to the West Wing, he put the kind of the presidential walk of fame, and so every president's photo is now framed walking down that walkway. Yeah. Until you get to the one of Joe Biden. It's just a framed picture of the auto pen.
It's hilarious, but it's actually pretty sad how accurate it is.
I had to push the mic away because I was laughing so hard.
Whoever had access to the auto pen was president for the day.
That's right. It's your turn to be president for 5 minutes. Oh, crank up the auto pen. Here's the passcode. How does that thing even work? That's just crazy.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. We're going to talk about several things today, political haymakers. When I say that, what I'm talking about is there are things that are happening that are making hay. And you got to wonder, are Democrats gaining ground? Like the first thing I've got here, and we'll go back and forth. If you want to call in about that ICE thing, we can talk about that too, but because it's a pretty big deal. But I have a story here from Fox. And the first thing this morning is I'm getting the show ready. Charlene is usually, doing her own quiet time and then also, checking the news herself. And I can't tell you how many times she'll point out stories to me that I hadn't even seen. And she calls out to me and says, "Hey, did you see this story?" And it's about an election yesterday in Arizona for Congress. I did not know this. It was a special election. You're thinking, oh, good Lord, did we lose a seat? Well, it says in here, the House majority shrinks. What have we got? Well, fear not. When I say fear not, yes, we did lose the election, but it was also a seat that's always been held by a Democrat in a very decidedly blue area that we did not expect to win. And this was just basically the lady, her name is Adelita Grijalva. Adelita Grijalva replaced her father. I'm sorry. No, where's her father's name? Raul Grijalva. She replaced her father, who passed away from cancer, who was the congressman prior to her. And so she just ran for daddy's seat and basically ran on name ID and ran blue in a blue area. So we lost a seat. Having that seat now filled does slim our majority down from 219 to 214 in the House. But it's also a seat that we didn't expect to gain. We have two other vacant seats right now. One is in Texas' 18th Congressional District, which is a heavily Democrat part of Houston. So there's that one. And then that's going to be held on November 4th. And the other one is in Tennessee. Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. It's a right-leaning seat. Republican Representative Mark Green stepped down, you may remember, take a job in the private sector. It's currently vacant, but it's so it's going to be a net wash. We're going to wind up seeing something like 220, 221 to 215. It's still going to be a 5 to 6. Talk about narrow. I mean, it doesn't come. It's downright anorexic, man. It's that thin. So anyway, when I look at this, the first thing that Charlene and I thought was the headline was misleading. Did we shrink the majority? Yes, only because we replaced one Democrat with a Democrat, and that had only been vacant for 6 months, and it was expected to lose. The question is what's going to happen with the other two, and then what's going to happen with the ones that are up for grabs in areas. The real truth is going to be the midterms. But leading up to them, what's going to wind up happening is Democrats are going to crow, "We took a seat in Arizona." No, you took back your seat in Arizona. But I got stuff. I got more stuff. We got to talk about what happened in Alabama last night. There was a major mayoral race and several others, and it was big doings. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I was in Korea, and at the time, it was still what we call a black organization, meaning nobody publicly acknowledged that it existed because it had just been formed in the aftermath of the attempted rescue of the Iranian hostages.
Right.
That's why the unit was created, because the analysis indicated that, look, you can't just throw together a bunch of assets and go try to do a complicated mission like this. It's not going to work. And so they created the unit, and there was going to be a second attempt, but most people don't know that. But the unit started training long-range missions in the desert, all the things that were required to go prosecute that target. And we're pretty much getting to the point where they were ready to go, and then the hostages got released. But the smartest decision maybe ever made by our government was, okay, well, the hostages are released, but we still need this capability. So let's keep the organization intact, fund it, obviously because everything runs on funding, unfortunately. And today, I mean, it's just an amazing organization. It's gotten more amazing over the years. So when I found out about it, it was, like I said, it was still black. And it's like people whispered about it in bars, and it's like, wow, I read Tom Clancy books. That sounds really cool, And I was getting assigned to Fort Campbell, which is where the headquarters for the 160th is. So I'm thinking, all right, I go to Fort Campbell. I walk across the street, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm interested. What do I need to do? And I made the mistake of signing into the 101st Airborne Division before I went and talked to the 160th. And by doing that, committed me to 2 years in the 101st. But in the end, best thing that could have happened to me.
Got a lot of stick time doing
I did get a lot of stick time. And in Korea, I'd flown medevac. And medevac is, it's great experience. You got to make a lot of decisions on the fly, quick response, bad weather, and you're flying by yourself. I was 22 years old. I'm flying real world medevac missions as the pilot in command.
No kidding. Yeah.
I mean, you mature faster, or you die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically how it works.
And others die with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a great experience. But what I didn't have is multi-ship, meaning like formation flying. Not a lot of, I mean, I had a decent amount of night vision goggle time, but not a ton. And you really need a lot of night vision goggle time to do well at the 160th. So getting that extra 2 years on 101st really helped me out. I went to the instructor pilot school while I was in 101st. So now I'm an IP. I got much more time. I got a lot more formation flying experience.
Yeah.
And then the process begins. So the assessment, again, it's a volunteer organization. So everybody that goes there on the pilot side is a volunteer. And then you have to go through an assessment, a lot like some of these other special units that you're familiar with. I mean, it's a psych eval, it's a swim test, physical fitness test, flight eval, board, all that stuff. And it happens in about a 3 or 4 day period. The board's always the most dramatic because you show up with your dress uniform on, you go in there and a bunch of people look like they want to hit you. And they ask you very difficult questions and try to put you in uncomfortable situations. And, there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer the question, what your makeup is. And that just begins the process. So then you enter green platoon. If they decide to take you, green platoon has changed quite a bit, but by the time you start to end, it's about 10 months. Where you're going through, again, land navigation, life-saving, physical fitness, just, all the things that, soldiering in general require at a high level. And then you start basic nav, where you're navigating in the cockpit with a map and a compass. Because even today, I think the priority is, hey, look, you need to know how to navigate, even though you got multiple systems in the aircraft that'll get you there.
That's right.
When I was first in, GPS wasn't even in the aircraft yet.
Not at all.
The global positioning system. I'm assuming everybody knows what that is. But so we really did rely on a paper map and a compass. But you have to hit targets in the middle of nowhere at night with very limited resources, and be able to do it every time plus or minus 30 seconds. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, depending on where you're trying to go, that can be a pretty difficult task.
I can just tell you it's hard doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys have a different terrain markers from up there, but you're also flying by it a lot faster, so you're having to keep
you
track
can
with
miss
the
it
terrain.
pretty quickly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it starts with the planning process. You got to pick the right checkpoints, in order to help you find your way. And then you learn the aircraft systems, because the aircraft have different systems than the conventional force does. So you got to learn how all that works. Then you got to learn the special tactics, like things like fast rope maneuvers and aerial refueling now.
I was going to ask about that.
All of that stuff is all unique to the unit. So you have to learn all that and demonstrate proficiency.
Was
Ship
Black Hawk
landing.
your airframe at the time too, right away?
Well, it was for me. It's different now because it's a pretty expensive aircraft to fly to put all those hours on it. So now they actually start out in little birds, which are the Hughes 500s, basically, for all that basic nav stuff, and then they move to the advanced aircraft.
Okay.
So again, all that takes about 10 months. And then again, kind of like Jared said, then you arrive at the unit and you're still nobody, because you're the FNG, basically, if anybody knows what that acronym stands for.
It's the one we won't say, but
I
yeah.
mean, there are people that won't even talk to you. I mean, you have not proven yourself. You just because you got through green platoon means nothing, right? You have to then make your way through the progression, basic mission qualified, full mission qualified, and then the ultimate level is flight lead.
And I'm assuming green platoon actually weeds people out too.
Oh, yeah.
So you have some that are there and they're not there the next day.
Oh, you lose people in assessment, you lose people in all phases of green platoon, and then you lose some people once they get to the unit, because either the deployment schedule is too much for them, or they just aren't performing the way you thought they were going to perform, even though they got through all that. When the rubber actually meets the road, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Was it of any benefit to you at all that you had your Spanish language skills that were already there? I mean,
no, probably
in some special
not.
operations, they want a language skill to be attached to it, but is that necessary at all in aviation?
No, not really. Right. No, I think in that case, it probably didn't help me a whole lot. I mean, the more you know about the more things, it's obviously going to help you in life, but I can't think of a specific example where that helped me out.
So you guys, you said you had some flying with nods and night vision ahead of your time going to green platoon and getting into the 160th, but But you guys fly with it a lot when you're in the 160th, right? Is that one of the things that differentiates the 160th capabilities, aside from the airframe having some other capabilities too? But is flying with nods a big part of what y'all do?
Yeah, certainly at the time. I would say now there's maybe the focus is broader. I mean,
Yeah.
across the entire military.
Yeah.
But the unit was pioneers in night vision goggle flight. I mean, our guys were the ones that came up with the idea. When I went through flight school, we actually flew with what are called full face goggles, meaning they have a frame around them.
And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2 already. Where'd hour number 1 even go? I just flew by. I get a few text messages and I'm going to the phones. We got a brand spanking new texter in the line. He says, if ICE can't wear masks, then why can the cashier at Publix? That's a fair point. I mean, when are masks allowed and when they're not, right? By the way, that's Kirk from Madison. Kirk, we're glad you're in there. And I'm taking it from the acronym you threw there at the end, Night Stalkers Don't Quit, that you're a former Night Stalker. And so thank you very much for your service, if that's the case. And we also had the tragedy. Night Stalkers, by the way, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment that fly all of our special ops guys where they got to go. They suffered a loss. They had 4 of their own die in a training event just last few days. So anyway, Night Stalkers don't quit. That's right. Clint from Tony, Alabama says, Phil, thank you for all you do. Thank you, sir. He said, question, is there any point that the inflammatory rhetoric that the left spews every time a camera or microphone is pointed at them becomes actionable due to them inciting violence? If not, can the president do an executive order to prevent them from doing it or continuing it? And the question, Clint, I'll tell you, is no. The only way you can do that is to find the direct nexus. If I say something's bad over here and somebody acts out way over there, someone could say, if you would stop saying those things, which is what we're doing, and I think there's a definite attribution here. The reality is, though, in terms of liability or litigation potential or anything else, you would have to have a direct nexus. You'd have to say, I called him on the phone, or I sent him a DM on his socials, or I texted him and I said, you've got to do something because these ICE agents are so bad. And then he went out and did it. Then, yes, I could be inciting. If I gave a speech and he was sitting in the audience in front of me and he left my speech and went and shot somebody, then you could say that potentially I had incited that violence. Very difficult to prove. And you have to have some measure of intent in order to find conspiracy. You have to have some measure of intent with a direct nexus in order to show liability. So there's lawyer Phil talking it through off the cuff for a second.
By the way, we got a direct message on your Facebook. Says, come on, sir. The ICE shooter used a 3006 and M1 Grand, or yeah, that's right, Grand, right? And not a 5.56. Keeping you straight, Ranger. God bless.
He's saying that because it looked like a speed loader clip. And I'm saying that I've seen any number of those clips come out of a box of 5.56 rounds that are all clipped together. So I can't tell from the photo that I'm looking at. But thank you, brethren. I appreciate your gun knowledge and for, quote unquote, sharpshooting me on the air. Real quick, Kim from Danville says, what makes the things extreme left say out loud different from the dark web whisper to the misguided activist? There's not a lot of difference. There's really not. Except that the ones that are dark web whispering are probably being communicated to directly. Hey, let me go to the phones. He held on, so let me grab that real quick. Jeff Rowe from Indiana's calling in early. My brother, what you doing?
Oh, I'm going through Nashville a slow pace.
What? You're already up yonder in Nashville?
Yeah, imagine that.
Wow. You are cruising, dude. Well, what's on your mind? Why'd you call in so early? You got something you want to harp on?
Oh, these texters are taking my thunder, but you know, the thing about it is, Phil, with all the rhetoric and everything, did you hear that Gavin Newsom wants ICE agents dead?
Did he say that?
Well, yeah. I mean, he wants them to be unmasked and everything. If Gavin Newsom was on the right, and somebody on the right said, pass this law and everything, what do you think the left would be saying?
Well, it's. I guarantee you, if we passed a law saying Antifa can't riot with masks on, they'd be having a fit. It's a First Amendment right or something crazy.
exactly. But you get talking about the not being actionable for all this rhetoric. You know, I personally think that ICE agents should file a class action lawsuit against all these politicians that's calling them Nazis.
Well, like what? Like a
Because
defamation suit?
defamation suit, yeah, exactly. You have elected politicians calling these people Nazis and stuff, and Nazi has a definition. It's you belong to the National Socialist Party and everything, and you don't. And most of these people are not. 99.99% of them don't. So
I can see it. It'd be one thing if they said all law enforcement, it was very generic, but they are saying specifically ICE, or they are saying specifically, DHS employees. And I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at that. Can that qualify? I'm not sure if that can. I tell you what, they'd have to have actual damages too. Here's the other thing: they'd have to show that they suffered damages, like they were deplatformed or they were debanked, or that they lost their place on a board because they were ICE employees or whatever. I could see it if they could prove damages, but but you know what? Now that I said that, okay, lawyer Phil talking, there is a thing called defamation per se, and that's where you don't have to actually prove the damages because the damages are inferred because someone was intending to harm your reputation, and it's obvious.
The damages are obvious. I mean, these people are masked up for their protection because of the rhetoric.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, why would you have a mask on if you weren't, afraid? So,
yeah,
just the fear of being accosted by someone who's crazy because of the rhetoric would be enough. It's like, if I yell fire in a crowded theater,
right,
when there's not a fire, that's not. It's dangerous because I've told a lie that was not true. And that the fact that these people could be killed or hurt because of this lie is why I would be charged. So with the Democrats lying about ICE and everything, what is the difference between that and yelling fire in a crowded theater?
There are times when I would say it's not. I mean, there are times when I would say it's not. It's one thing to say I don't like ICE tactics, or I don't think that ICE should do it this way, but it's another thing altogether for, like, you're right, to just blanket them with statements like Nazis and jackbooted thugs and and that kind of stuff, because Gestapo, because it literally is designed to paint them in a bad light, is the phrase that we would use in legal parlance.
Yeah, and it's basically saying go out and hurt these people, or resist and do all of these other things. I mean, it's basically the same thing as yelling fire in a crowded theater. It's what happens after that would be basically the same, because these people are getting accosted. I think it's up 1,000% now of the attacks that's on ICE right now. So that had to come from somewhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guarantee you that what's happened is the anti-ICE rhetoric and the angst about illegal immigration enforcement is absolutely what's driving the train on the increase in assaults. And some of those, I don't know all these assaults where they're coming from, but I suspect that part of that is these gatherings that they gather up outside the gates and then like tussle with ICE agents when they're just trying to do their jobs. But today the shooting is all next level, and it's going to unfold over the days to come. But JP was just telling me that they've already determined that he comes from a very leftist family, that's like extreme leftist family. And you said, JP, he even had a transgender sister or something.
No. So, first, his mom has been very vocal about her advocating for gun laws, but his sister is a vocal Beto O'Rourke supporter who is also, from the looks of it, in a lesbian relationship. So sounds like a MAGA family to me, right?
Yeah. And then there's the anti-ICE stuff written on the bullets. Yeah.
I wonder if Jimmy Fallon will accuse him of being MAGA.
I think right now, Kimmel, you mean Jimmy Kimmel? I think
Kimmel, I'm sorry.
I think Kimmel will probably toe the line for a little while. I think Kimmel got put in timeout and has learned his lesson, at least for the moment. We'll wait and see.
I think stick a fork in him, he's done, because I didn't see anything apologetic on that last night, and he basically thumbs his nose and did a little crying thing because he's worried about his own thing, but he's too proud to admit that he was actually wrong and actually apologize. and Turning Point has come out and said that as so much of a statement.
Yep, I would agree. All right, brother. Hey, listen, I'm so glad you're further down the road than usual right now. Be safe on the rest of the trip. We got to take a break, all right?
You all have a good one. Thank you.
See you, bud. All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back, and I'm going to jump into more of this political haymaker. Got to talk about what happened with the mayor's race in Mobile, Alabama. I mean, the Democrat got a Kamala Harris endorsement. What happened? I'll tell you. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Cannot see anything other than what you see through the tubes. And we did flights during the daytime with filters on the ends of the tubes where the instructor can see, but you can't, because obviously that's the safest way to learn how to fly night vision goggles. But it's really difficult for the person actually flying under those conditions. I think I was actually the last class to ever fly full face goggles and do day filters. I'm not sure, but we made a transition right around that time. But it was guys at the unit who said, "This is stupid. Cut the frame off," right? Because they're originally made for ground use, not air use.
Yeah.
So they cut the frame off and they made them flip up, and you know, there's been evolution after evolution.
They got the big cushion pad around.
Yeah,
and they're like,
the full
like
face
big.
ones. Yeah. They didn't last very long, but that's where it started. You know, until somebody said, "No, we need to change this," and then they came up with ideas like finger lights and lip lights and infrared lasers and infrared tracers and all these things that you can see with night vision goggles that you can't see with the unaided eye. All were, you know, basically came from that early
So how much of that
stage.
training is done by simulators now? Do they do that?
A
by
lot,
simulation?
a lot.
Yeah.
Simulators are really good. It was actually part of what I did after,
At
you know,
Pinnacle?
I transitioned out, was working that field. And it's a tremendous cost saver in safety. You know, I mean, you can do things in a simulator that are sometimes impossible to do in the aircraft, but certainly safer to do in a simulator. And you can do it cost effectively, because a lot of what's going on in the aircraft today that are advanced is mission management. It's not so much moving the sticks around, it's pushing buttons and understanding how to use the integrated avionics. And you don't need to learn how to do that in a, you know, aircraft that costs whatever, you know, $10,000 an hour to fly. Now, I'm not saying you don't need stick time. Okay, that's the trap that some bean counters tend to fall into. That
There's always that seat of the pants feel that changes things.
and actually the Army has come to realize that the aircraft they've been using for primary flight training at Fort Rucker now probably isn't the best, because you're not doing enough actual stick flying. There's a lot of automated systems on board that help the aircraft, or help you as a pilot, that you're losing that real ability to fly manually.
Yeah.
And they just did a pilot program where they're going to probably change how flight school is done, because there's been a realization that we got people that don't know how to fly a helicopter. I mean, they can mission manage all day long, but if they have to actually fly a bird, they're not as good as we used to be, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: what now? The 160th, y'all are balls out a lot. So when you're flying, some of the stuff you're doing are not the things you would do or even be allowed to do in a conventional unit. But then you're also, like you said, you were back in the days when things were being pioneered. And I swear, I think it was you told me one time about strapping a Gatling gun or something to the front of one of the birds just to try it out to see if it would work. And it didn't work very well.
Well,
am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, I was part of the group that created the ARM Blackhawk.
Okay.
And it's still the only place that it's used is at the 160th.
All right.
And yeah, we were running with scissors. I mean, we put a 50 cal, you know, and these things are being mounted just on what was originally intended to be a door gunner pintle mount. So it's not really structurally designed to hold, you know, a fixed forward weapon, but we modified it to where it could. And I mean, we
a little
had
duct tape, a little zip tie.
Oh, plenty of duct tape. Yeah, even coat hangers. I mean, you name it, whatever it took. But it was an amazing time to be there, because you could go from sitting in the team room saying, "Man, it would be cool if we could do this," to convincing the leadership that, you know, there's some risk here, but we think we can mitigate it. Let's go try it. To then, yeah, that worked, writing a requirement and actually getting it turned into something that is fielded, and then go shoot it in combat. I mean, there's probably nowhere else in the world you could say that. And I mean, I experienced that on more than one occasion.
So what was the craziest thing you can remember y'all did and thought, well, we're never to do that again? The one that you sit around at 160th reunions going, remember that time?
Yeah. Well, one of the most amazing stories, and I've told it many times. I like to joke that I shot myself down 5 times. And the most dramatic one, and none of it my fault, but the most dramatic one. So back to this pintle mount with a minigun on it. So a minigun is a 7.62 Gatling gun,
Right.
6-barrel. It'll shoot 6,000 rounds a minute at high rate. Okay, that is incredible. When people see video, like if you go online, you Google minigun, night firing, keep in mind all those traces you're seeing, that's every 14th round. Okay, or every 15th round. It's 14-to-1 tracer mix usually. So even though it's a steady stream of tracers, there's 14 more rounds in between each one of those you're not seeing. That's how many rounds.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. I'm sorry it took me longer to come back from the bump. I was too busy educating JP on what a 60-year-old man's workout looks like. Just saying.
Aggressive planks.
Aggressive planks is what I like to call them. Well, when you got 3 fused vertebrae in the neck, you don't do crunches anymore.
Yeah.
And when you've got like other like arthritic knees and things like that, there's not like anyway, you got to modify is what I'm saying, bro. Modify.
I've done side planks once and it was from the demands of a football coach, and I'll never do the side planks again because they're awful.
Well, mine are self-inflicted aggressive planks.
Yeah.
And they're talking to me right now. All right. Hey, listen, I got to jump on into some stuff. So I'm talking about political haymakers is what I called it. What kind of ways are Democrats and Republicans making hay right now in politics? Well, so I told you a minute ago about the congressional races. Yes, the Democrats won a seat last night, but not really, because it was a seat that had been vacated by a Democrat who passed away from cancer in an overly blue area, and all they did was just go ahead and run for it. Special election got it back. We expected that. It does narrow the margin slightly of who's available to vote in the House, but it was not a surprise. Then let's look at major races for mayors. Listen, I'm going to tell you, if you didn't pay attention during COVID, shame on you. But it's the truth is, we learned the hard way to the extent to which local leadership can really make a difference. And in major metropolitan areas, even more so, because it affects so many people. And then it has second and third order effects around its region. For instance, what's happening in New York City right now with this outright socialist communist Zohran Mamdani. Listen, y'all, I got a piece here for the New York Post, Dateline, just last week, that he is holding a 21-point lead right now in the polls. 21-point lead. So he's got a huge lead. Next behind him is Andrew Cuomo at 24%. Then 17% is Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, who's not going to win. And then you've got 9% going to current mayor Eric Adams, 5% undecided. This is a Marist University public opinion survey, so it's a reasonably, it's expected to be a real survey. Questions are still revolving around: will anyone drop out? Will anyone just read the tea leaves and say, it is better for the overall, if we want to keep Mamdani from getting elected, for other people to drop out and swing? Because what you're seeing right now is if they're not polling from Mamdani, it means they're probably not Mamdani voters no matter what happens. So if Eric Adams drops out, who gets his 5%? If Eric Sliwa drops out, who gets his? Will anybody? Will it just change the dynamic because there's no Republican at that point? What can you do to get hold of the votes if people would? So right now what we're looking at is we could very well see one of the greatest cities on earth, New York City. I love New York City. I was just there. New York City. I love the Big Apple. But it deteriorated under recent conditions. It is not the New York City of Rudy Giuliani. It's not. and it is struggling. And if you think it's struggling now, good Lord, if Mamdani gets elected, he's talking about raising taxes, tearing down parks in order to put up so-called, affordable housing complexes. He's looking at doing any number of things like spending money on socialist programs like community-owned grocery stores. So I will just tell you, it's a big deal.
I'm still holding out hope that majority of New York voters are not just young woke kids who want rent control and government-run grocery stores. But I think it would have to take Eric Adams dropping out, because I think his incumbency is hurting him, because obviously they don't like what's going on.
It's going to take Cuomo to beat him right now.
Yeah, I think
crazy.
They all got to rally around Cuomo, which is like the lesser of two evils.
Well, and that's actually what, getting ready for this morning, that's what drove me to that monologue I did about the quest for the perfect outweighing the good. Here's the truth. This guy, Curtis Sliwa, he's an interesting character. He's done some neat things. He's not going to win the race. He's not. It's too blue of an area. I love the fact that he's in there, but he was not going to be the candidate that could galvanize a swing to Republican voters. He's going to get some just because he's an R, and that's about it. But right now, I think the only person that could unfortunately beat Mamdani is Andrew Cuomo, who I don't care for at all. Yep. I think he's a thug. At the same time, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
You take the thug that you know, or the guy that would literally turn New York City into
a socialist
socialist state. Yeah,
exactly. So that was the point of my monologue earlier, was the quest for the perfect cannot outweigh the gain of the good. And so at this point, I'm saying I got no choice but to go, looking at what we got in front of us, I think Cuomo's the man. And it's time for Eric Adams to drop out. And it wouldn't bother me in this case if Sliwa dropped out, because all it might do is swing more votes into Cuomo and help close that 21% gap we're seeing in the polls and keep us from having an actual communist run the. New York City has an economy that if they broke off and became their own nation, they would have the 12th highest GDP in the world. That's how big the economy of New York City is. You're talking, was it 5 million residents? I mean, it's like the population of Alabama in one city. Look and see what the population of New York City is.
8 million.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's 8.5 million.
It's yeah, okay. We're 5.2 million is the population of the entire state of Alabama. 8 million people. They are stacked up like cordwood in that city. But nonetheless, it's a nation unto itself. I don't like the politics, but I really don't want to see it go down that road. I just that guy doesn't deserve to be a mayor. And yet democracy is what it is. And the only way to work this is to work the democratic system and find a way to beat him at the polls.
He's a fraud. I mean, he's a rich kid. He's a rich theater kid who thinks socialism's cute and knows that if it doesn't work, he can fall back on his parents' money, and also is claimed to be African-American when applying to college. When
I forgot about that.
So
a rich theater kid?
That's what he is, yeah.
He's a rich theater kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that phrase. Is that a phrase, or is that
it is?
Okay.
Yeah.
We coined it here. Rightside Radio. Use that when you want to. Insult him. He's a rich theater kid. Bless his heart. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, taking a break. Coming right back. I got to tell you about Mobile, what happened last night. Let's talk about mayor's races in Alabama. We'll be right back.
Are going downrange. So we got one on each side. And the way that we fixed forward mounted them is we put this, we call it a diaper pin. It was a pin that went through the pivot, which, because, if it's a door gunner, they're going to want to be able to pivot it, right?
Right.
We have to fix that. So we put a brace to hold it vertically, and then we put this pin through the shaft it's rotating on to hold it horizontally. And then it's a diaper pin because it goes around and it has a hook on the end that connects on the end.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Which sounds like that should be sufficient. Well, it is until it isn't. And I'm flying with Donovan Briley, who's a really good friend of mine, lost in Somalia, actually. First aircraft shot down. We're flying. He's in the right seat. I'm in the left. Night vision goggles. We're going in a range at Fort Knox. Live fire. No dry run. We got approval to usually have to make a dry pass to make sure there's nobody out there, but we got approval to go in hot. So we roll in. I'm flying. I pull the trigger, and the tracers are crossing in front of the nose. And so I
That's
let off.
bad, by the way.
Yeah, I let off
Don't
on the
cross
trigger.
the streams.
And I said, that is the worst expletive bore sight job I have ever seen in my life. So a bore sight is when you
Right.
orient the weapons to where they're going to impact where the sight is pointing, right? And Donovan, in classic Donovan style, says, Mike, I think we got a problem. So I look over, and I mentioned the finger lights earlier. Finger light is just a little battery-operated LED that is infrared, so you can't see it unless you're wearing goggles. We have some that you can see. This one you could see. And he turns on his finger light, and he points to the windshield. His minigun, that diaper pin can't come out while we were flying to Fort Knox. And when I pulled the trigger, the barrel rotation caused the gun to go left. You would think the wind would cause it to go right, but the barrel rotation caused it to go left.
Force.
And it shot through the cockpit. It missed his knee by like 3 inches. He's got 7.62 rounds all through the cockpit. The windshield's blown out. Glass has been, because I felt something in my eyes, and it turned out it was glass shards from the rounds going through the cockpit.
Almighty, Mike.
And again, luckily, it hit. He had a armor panel on the side here, and the barrels hit the front of the armor panel, I think, but it stopped them from going any further, or it would come right through the cockpit and kill us both. And anyway, we landed, and what I like to say about this story is, this is back when it seemed like we had a little bit of authority to do things that maybe you'd get crushed for today. So I'm thinking about, okay, nowhere in the manual does it say I can't have holes in the windshield to fly this bird. So we put duct tape, back to the duct tape, over the holes in the windshield, cranked it up, and flew it back to Fort Campbell.
No,
Today, that would probably get you a little
with your
bit
finger
higher.
off the trigger the whole time.
We emptied the rounds out of the weapons, but that's probably the most dramatic thing that ever happened non-combat.
Yeah.
That I can come up with, and then there were 4 more of those that are less exciting. But
No, that's but yeah, that's definitely one of those you swap over a beer and like, oh no, let me tell the time we shot ourselves down.
Yeah.
That's
so they don't use the diaper pins anymore. By the way.
all right. So op tempo for you, you're in the 160th. Operational tempo is higher than the average unit, I would imagine, but it's a lot of come and go. What's the op tempo like in the 160th?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Again, I was out when 9/11 occurred. I'd retired 6 months prior.
Really?
Made me feel like I was sitting on the bench and considered what I could do to get back in. But with my injuries from Somalia, I couldn't fly operationally anymore. But the reason I bring that up is just to put this in perspective. The rotation for our guys during the War on Terror was 90 days on, 90 days off. So you're in theater 90 days, either Iraq or Afghanistan, you're back for 90, then back in. There are guys who did 30 rotations, 30 in combat. And when I say combat, I mean combat.
Yeah.
They're hitting multiple targets.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Yes, it is. Just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show on places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, there's a ton of y'all that podcast the show, catch it after the fact. All that to say, we can see it, we know it, and Lord, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, part of our lives. You're the only reason why we do what we do. So thank you very much. Text lines are going strong. I'll catch up on some of those here momentarily. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Give me your thoughts on what we've been talking about. I'm finishing up this thing about political haymakers. Let's talk about this. The race down yonder in Mobile. I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands the results of last night's mayoral race in Alabama's second biggest city. So for those of y'all that are not familiar, Mobile is the second biggest city in the state now. It's funny how that all flipped around in the last few years.
I was about to say that when I was a kid, they were like the fourth.
Yeah.
And like 10 years later, then the second. It's
Whoop,
crazy.
whoop. It's just, but so Mobile's by the way, Mobile's a major city. It's one of the big five, they call it in Alabama. But it's a major city for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that it's like a huge port city. It's a funnel, if you will, to the river deltas and up the Mississippi River. It's a big part of commerce. It's the bottom end of I-65. It's the gateway to the Gulf. All that to say, Mobile's a big deal. Spiro Chiriogatis. There's a name for you. Talk about somebody who's probably had his name mispronounced multiple times.
It's a Hall of Fame name.
It is. I could be mangling it right now for all I know, but I'm pretty sure it's Spiro Chiriogatis. Is the Republican who won the 2025 mayoral election in Mobile. Can I have some applause, please, for the Republican who won? And I'm going to tell you right now, it was a narrow margin. Now, it's a little bit better than I thought it was, JP, because they finished up the count. He won with 51.3% of the votes. That's
pretty dang close.
That's pretty dang close. Last night, when I went to bed, I was checking on it. It was tied 50-50. At one point, I called it out to Charlene. I said, honey, there's a 1 vote difference, 1 vote between the two candidates so far. But yeah, so Spiro Chiriogatis, the Republican, was backed also by the outgoing incumbent, Mayor Sandy Stimpson, who I know personally, think the world of him. I like the whole Stimpson family. They're wonderful people. Chiriogatis won. Barbara Drummond was the Democrat. So Barbara Drummond, in case you didn't see, got what Democrats love and Republicans loathe in the last few days. She got a nationwide call-out endorsement from Kamala Harris, which I don't know that helped her.
No.
And then she also got $100,000 from the teachers union for her last-minute payout on her race. So failed 2024, 1819 News again, failed 2024 Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris touted state rep Barbara Drummond during an appearance on Rachel Maddow's show. She just said, this is what she said. I watched it. It was live. In fact, it's funny. I was in the green room at CNN. We were all watching it, the interview with Maddow. It was painful. I think I said yesterday, I'd just rather have somebody poke me in the eye with a sharp stick, but I did it. I watched it because I thought we were going to talk about it on the show that I was on. And so there she is on Maddow, and she's talking about rising stars and Mom Donnie, but then she goes, but he's not the only rising star. We got people like Barbara Drummond in Mobile, Alabama, and Helena Marino in New Orleans. And I'm thinking, Barbara Drummond. And I looked at a guy who was sitting there, who I think is a Democrat. And I said, she may have just cost Barbara Drummond the race.
Well, so why do you think it was that close? Is it Mobile got a strong Democratic presence?
They do. Yeah, Mobile's got a strong. There's a lot of blue, and if you look at it, it's. I don't want to say it's a purple city, but it is
probably becoming more purple as it's growing in population.
Unfortunately, and that's probably true. And they also incorporated. Part of the reason why it grew was not just an influx of people. It's because they incorporated some of the outlying areas and made them part of the municipality. Just in the last few years, and that automatically grew them to a different size. And they incorporated some areas that were more blue.
Yeah, and probably the fact that the Republicans control every part of the government, probably at the federal government, probably emboldened Democrats to show up and vote, probably as well. So
there was not a lot of apathy, I guess I would say, but luckily they pulled it out. Now here's the other piece of this that I thought was really worth watching. In fact, I talked to Brian Dawson from 1819 this morning. We were trying to get him on the show. We were just catching up on some things, and he was not able to be here, but he had just written a piece in 1819 that says the AEA, that's the Alabama Education Association, basically Alabama's teachers union, conservative Christian mask just slipped. So if you didn't see it, one of the things that happened in the last like 10 days, I think, is that the teachers union gave $100,000 in one whack to Barbara Drummond's campaign. They did $100,000. Why is the teachers union trying to influence a mayoral race, you may ask? Well, number one, Barbara Drummond is a true teachers union person. I mean, her voting record would make communists of the NEA proud, is what Dawson said in his write-up. He said, this woman voted against a bill that prohibited gender identity and sexuality discussion in schools. She voted against a bill defining gender based on biological sex. She voted no on the Laken-Riley Act that allows local law enforcement to partner with federal governments. She has a radical voting record, and the AEA gave her $100,000. So as you look at these campaign contributions from the teachers union, you realize also too, and I'm not sure for a fact, but we need to look and see, maybe you can look this up while I'm talking. A lot of municipalities, the mayors get appointments to the local school boards. I don't know how the Mobile City School Board handles if they're all elected or if they're appointed. But the truth is, mayors have influence, and the AEA wanted that influence. And they had one of their own, if you will, who was getting close, and they tried to push her over the edge. And it failed, thank goodness. Once again, the teachers union burning their members' dollars on loser candidates with radical voting records. That's what they do. That's who they are. What'd you find? How do they do it in Mobile?
It says the local school board members are elected by the qualified voters of the county or city, not appointed.
Okay. What about library boards in Mobile? I think the library board is one of the other ones the teachers union is really on fire about because, libraries, that's the center of the world for controversy apparently now.
Library boards are appointed by the city's governing body.
There you go.
Which is the Mobile City Council.
Okay, there you go. The city council and the mayor's offices do have influence on the library boards, and I guarantee you they can weigh in on things related to the school board, although it may have a separate election for those. All that to say, the teachers union looked at the two candidates and decided it was going to weigh in on a mayoral race in one of the biggest cities in our state, and threw a six-figure donation behind the most radical one they could find. That's
telling on themselves
gross.
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, that whole thing. By the way, if you are a member of the AEA paying your dues every month and you are a right-side ruffian, you're a conservative, at the very least, you're a Republican, just realize that's what they do with your dues. The teachers union takes your dues and they give it to candidates like that. And the idea that they've modified their stance. The Christian conservative side of the AEA has finally come out. You saw what they just did with $100,000 of your dues money. Well, there you have it. But they lost. Thank goodness. By the way, a couple other races I thought were significant. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Republicans had a good win in Guntersville. That was a runoff. The Guntersville race between the current incumbent, who was endorsed by Katie Britt, actually, and a guy named Jeff McLaughlin, who's a longtime Democrat, former state House member, who now wants everybody to believe he's really a Republican. The incumbent won, so that's good. And they actually tied. They were a dead heat tie. This is a runoff election, but the incumbent Republican won.
The number I saw earlier, I'd have to find it again. It wasn't even really close.
No, it was a pretty good win.
So it's maybe all the distant family members and friends got guilt tripped into going to the ballots or something.
Maybe
it's like, hey guys,
yeah, like that time when you were on vacation and forgot to vote.
Yeah,
not this time. That's a heck of a thing, man. When you lose by one vote, you realize all it took was two of your friends to go to the polls who forgot, and you would have won.
It's like that skit.
I've seen it happen.
It's like that skit when Larry David were they're in the line and the other guy's voting for the other candidate, then Larry's voting for, so they go, "Oh, we'll cancel each other out. We'll just leave," and then end up losing by one vote. That stuff happens. It's crazy.
All right, we're taking a break. We'll take this break. We'll come right back, catch up on some text messages. Give me your thoughts on this. How do you feel about the teachers union weighing in on mayoral elections? And how do you feel in general about mayor's races? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Night. And there's just no op tempo that's more demanding than that I know of.
That's every one of the airframes.
Yes.
Chinooks, Blackhawks.
Yeah, the
Warbirds, whole
Chinooks were the stars of Afghanistan, actually, because
Some
of
amazing
the,
stuff,
of the
yeah.
elevation,
Yeah.
which was a real struggle for the Little Birds and even the Blackhawks. But Iraq was pretty much more a Black Hawk Little Bird show.
Yeah.
With certainly a lot of Chinook missions as well. But yeah, all the platforms.
Yeah, I was in my tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war, riding horses and stuff. But we were in the northern parts, north of the Hindu Kush, and so both Bagram and Kandahar down south couldn't get to us by rotary wing because getting over the top of the Hindu Kush was too much for most of the airframes they flew.
Yep.
And the only couple of times something happened where somebody came in from the south, I think they were flying Chinooks.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beast. I mean, it really is. There's some.
It's a freaking school bus with rotors on top.
Yeah, we call it a dump truck, but
yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's a great aircraft.
But I've seen images of, I mean, some of those guys that fly in the Chinooks. It's amazing. They can balance on a dime. But they literally, one guy was with the ramp down in the back was hovering in the air, exiting troops onto a mud hut on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, there's a famous picture from Afghanistan. That's probably it.
Yeah.
The front wheels are off in space, with hundreds of feet below. Yeah.
So you had some major deployments. Operation Prime Chance, which a lot of folks don't realize is defending tankers that were flagged American and making sure they're safe.
Our friends, the Iranians, who
they're in the news again.
They've I don't even know what to say about them. It's just they've been a constant problem for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because the Israelis are just to the point where they had to do something, and they did.
Yeah, and I think most of the world is glad they did. At the same time, holding their breath that they did.
Right.
But Operation Just Cause, so you're back in Panama again, and you went in with the 160th on that too, right?
Right. We did. We were there for 8 hours. So when the F-117 dropped the first bomb ever at Rio Hato, I was down there underneath watching it. It was pretty amazing.
Flying over places you've been to in the past, right?
Yeah. Some of the subsequent missions, there's where I used to live, and we're putting SEAL Team 6 in on targets around the city trying to find, because Noriega was still on the run at the time. That our mission was to capture him. That was it.
Yeah.
And we called it the hunt for Elvis because there was always an Elvis sighting somewhere, and usually it was bogus, but if it met the intel criteria, we'd go. And so we were flying all over the place.
And then Desert Storm also, also with 160th. Obviously, all your deployments there with 160th. But what was the mission in Desert Storm? Was it scud hunting or what?
It was, yeah. So the scuds, for those who don't recall, the concern was Saddam was launching scuds into Israel,
right,
which potentially would draw Israel into the fight, which would break up our coalition because our coalition had Arab countries along with Western countries as part of a unified force. But if the Israelis got involved, the concern was that would fall apart. So it was a huge issue to stop Saddam Hussein from firing scuds into Israel. So we were putting Delta Force on the ground in Western Iraq to try to find these launchers. And then we actually found some ourselves, and I was fortunate enough to put the first rounds on one.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
With an armed Blackhawk?
With an armed Blackhawk.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Take it out?
So in the end, they think it was a decoy. But there's a photo of it in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. Like there's an Army one, a Navy one, Air Force. There's a SOCOM book. They're big format, like coffee table books. Yeah. In that book for SOCOM, there's a picture of my FLIR. If you look at that picture, I don't care who you are, you're not going to think that's a decoy. I mean, so FLIR is forward-looking infrared. For those who don't know what that acronym is, it's heat sensitive, basically. You can see heat on the wheels. I mean, it looks real. I mean, this thing absolutely looks real. And then you can see the minigun rounds sort of hitting on the way up into but it didn't blow up. And we had a Scud expert back at the operations center when we got back, and he said, "You're really lucky it didn't blow up, because if it blows up, it's like the space shuttle going off because there's so much propellant in there."
Oh, wow.
And we were pretty close. We were probably within 200 meters when we broke.
Oh, wow.
Break meaning you're diving, you're shooting, and then you break. And he said, if you would have blown it up, it probably would have taken you out. So, okay. Glad it
take
didn't
that
blow
all
up.
day long.
Yeah.
you still get credit though, right?
I guess so.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just bulletproof influence, man. Bulletproof influence. That's where we are. In fact, that reminds me. I got to tell y'all, I think we still have some left. If you have not seen them, you need to go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. And I do believe we still have I haven't looked at the stock room, but I'm pretty sure we still have a handful of those bulletproof influence limited edition glasses. So if you haven't seen them before, they're very cool. JP, oh, you're pulling it up right now. JP's pulling it up as we speak on the live stream so you can see it. But on the rightsidemedia.org website, there's a shop tab where you can, go and buy T-shirts and hats and all the stuff that we have, the merchandise. But we also have a limited edition. They're called Ben Shot glasses. We had a company called Ben Shot custom make these for us. It has it's a highball glass with the engraved logo of the Right Side Media with the words bulletproof influence underneath it. And there's an embedded 308 round that's in the glass, like it tried to shoot through, but didn't. So it's very cool. You ought to check them out. It's worth having. We got a few left. This is our second run of these. We may have to get more, JP. I'm just saying. But yeah, we got T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, stickers, the whole thing. Check it out, rightsidemedia.org. Go to our shop tab, and do some shopping. Mark from Huntsville earlier on the text line says, the apology by Jimmy Kimmel last night would not pass muster with my wife. That sounds like Mark's had a few failed apologies with his wife before in the past. Jerry from Decatur says the shooter in Dallas did not end well by proving himself to be evil by attempting to kill ICE officers and then murdering himself. I would think that Satan was there to welcome him home, airborne. Well, Jerry, don't beat around the bush. Thank you very much.
Nailed it.
John from Harvest says parents should inoculate their kids against socialism by having them clean the bathroom. Pay them $10, then take away $7. Give it to their siblings who didn't help. Socialism won't seem so attractive then. There's a lesson. John from Brownsboro says, if you want Mamdani out, Trump needs to hold a rally in support of him at Madison Square Garden. Use Trump derangement syndrome against him. He keeps getting stronger because Trump is against him. Okay. No. Stephen from Athens says, by the way, Phil, it's Sliwa. Okay, am I saying it wrong? Curtis Sliwa.
I wouldn't have been able to tell if you were saying it right or wrong.
I feel certain he's had his name messed up his entire life. But yeah, okay. So Curtis Sliwa, who is the founder of the Guardian Angels, and has done, cool things in the community, been known for years, but he is the only Republican in the race right now for mayor's office or mayor of New York City. And he's polling way down. I don't see him coming up. So there's that. Joe in Tennessee says, glad that Mobile, Alabama rejected the Mamdani Cackler clone as mayor.
Morondani, by the way.
Morondani.
Morondani.
I see it now. Morondani Cackler clone. By the way, I did see part of that interview I told you about with, or most of that interview with Rachel Maddow and Kamala Harris, and she cackled, and I thought how much I have not missed that.
Yeah.
Like, Lord, I have not missed that.
Yeah. It's remind what it could have been like. Like what you were talking about earlier, don't let the quest for perfect be the enemy of good. Remember what it could have been if Trump would not have won.
Just think about where we almost were. Barry Mathens says, we got more than one. Okay, he's talking about, let me back up because he's got a couple of texts here. He says, I'm not sure, but it seems like engraving any message on a shell casing or a bullet would not be something a normal individual would have the equipment to be able to do. I'm just curious, but is there any company that do that? And if there are, can these companies be investigated to find out what they might know about these shootings? Okay, so Barry, if you're talking about the shooting today, different thing. This guy looked like he wrote it with a Sharpie. It was just written on the side of the one before up in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Minnesota? Which one had actually scratched it on there?
Well, Charlie Kirk shooter did, but also
did.
the Minnesota shooter did as well.
Yeah, and they appear to have been scratched on, like with a sharp object. which wouldn't be hard to do. Get an ice pick and just scratch it away. So that's what we know about that. Then he goes on to say, I'm not sure, but engraving any message on a shell case. Is that a same text?
He liked his earlier text.
Oh, he liked his own text.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Well, Barry, I'm glad you liked your own text. That's good. Dave from Capshaw checking in. Got me a meme. What's he saying there? Dave from Capshaw's meme has Kamala Harris, and it says, from Babylon B, Kamala does a speaking tour to remind the nation why Trump is president. What is who works at Babylon B? These people are genius. Jimmy Kimmel could take lessons.
Oh yeah, and actually being funny.
Jeff from Indiana checking in says, hey, Phil, at this rate with Mobile having a Republican mayor, they may give Huntsville a run for the money as being the biggest city. Same people exiting the blue cities, causing prices like Birmingham to lose causing places, I'm sure he means, like Birmingham to lose population. It could very well happen. It could. Now, by the way, Sandy Stimson, the predecessor, was a Republican too. Now, they do have a very difficult city council down there. The city council in Mobile is tough. So luckily, though, they do have a Republican conservative mayor. Roy from Hartselle says, Phil, why not add 3X sizes in merchandise for us big old guys? We sold out. So if there's not some there right now, it's only because some of my big ruffians already got their shirts. So Roy, get you a hat, brother. The hats are adjustable. It'll work. And Yellow Dog Mike checking in. What's Yellow Dog Mike got? Yellow Dog Mike. Yellow Dog Mike says, well, looks like Kimmel knocked the ball out of the park last night, and all Trump can do is whine like a man baby. Your earlier comment about the left fomenting violence is absurd. You, yada, yada. You blow off Voldemort Miller's comments, and your Hitler Youth sidekick is so brainwashed it's shameful. Who's my Hitler Youth? Are you talking about you?
I assume he's talking about me.
Yellow Dog. You're so lame, man. You're absolutely I have a theory. I don't think Yellow Dog Mike is real. I think Yellow Dog Mike is actually a conservative who just writes the most extreme things they can just to give some spice to the text line. That's my theory, because there ain't no way anybody is this lame in real life.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well, maybe I wouldn't, because I have been on CNN a few times.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying. All right, we got about 30 seconds for the break. We come back for this. Do not forget, we're going to be in the Grand Council with two of my brethren. In this case, Dale Jackson's out this week, but we got Jeff Poor from 1819 News and our buddy Scott Buttram, who is always great when he comes on. He is the publisher of the Trustful Tribune. Both two solid conservatives. We will opine about the news, ask each other questions, see where the chips may fall. We don't always even agree, but we love each other when it's done, and that's the important part. So that being said, stand by. Next, we got the Grand Council. Okay, taking it to the break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And then there's Operation Gothic Serpent, which is heading into Somalia. Became known as the Battle of Mogadishu. A lot of your book, of course, and rightfully so, is focused on that mission. I want to dive into that for a bit, because that's the one. I mean, your situation in the Battle of Mogadishu took you out of running in obscurity in terms of your personal name, and thrust you into the eyes of the entire world. And I remember that. I remember when that happened. It was amazing to see it. But for those who don't recall, Operation Gothic Serpent, the intro into Mogadishu for the United States actually started under George H.W. Bush.
Correct.
But it transitioned in early '93 when Clinton took office.
Correct.
So you were there during Clinton's era, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Clinton took office in January '93. Task Force Ranger is the name of the U.S. presence, I guess, at the airfield there. And then in October, was it October 3rd, I think? October 3rd, '93, launched what many people just refer to as Black Hawk Down, because that's the book and the movie. And I guess code word Irene was what launched the mission, right?
It was.
Which my secretary downstairs at the law firm, her name is Irene. I told her
really?
one day, I said, I don't know if you're aware of the use of your name in modern pop culture. And she went, I've never heard that. So anyway.
And actually, that's my character that says it in the movie.
That is your character. Yeah. And I want to talk about the movie and all that too at some point, just to get your thoughts on it. But Rangers have the mission of going in and securing some high value targets, or securing the scene so that Delta can secure the high value targets. You're part of the flight in. Who were you bringing in, by the way?
So I was the flight lead, which means I'm responsible for my whole flight of aircraft of the Ranger blocking force. So it's basically split into two pieces. We had the assault force, which is where the Delta guys are. They're primarily on little birds. Yeah. And they're going to go in first because they want the element of surprise. They want to be, busting doors down before, with limited amount of time to react, right? If you put the blocking force in first, then you bring the assault force in, the bad guys have a little bit more time to react. So they're going in first. We're right behind them. So as soon as their birds pull out, we're moving in. And I had 4 Blackhawks that made up the blocking force, plus 2 spare attack little birds, plus the search and rescue birds. So we're all coming in together on the second wave, basically. And we just set up a box. I mean, all they want is put a Ranger platoon on each corner, and the purpose is twofold. One, keep more bad guys from getting in, and then obviously we call them leakers, keeping the people you're after from getting out. And that all went pretty smoothly, even though we'd done it 6 times before. This was the 7th mission.
Right.
And, we had tremendous success. We had captured, I think, 27 people on a list of 50, taken no casualties of any significance. We didn't lose any birds. I mean, it was all going pretty well. There were 3-day missions and 3-night missions leading up to that. And this 7th mission is a day mission, which created some risk factors that we knew about, but, not my call.
Part of the job.
But yeah, the commander makes the call.
Right.
They're within tolerance, I guess you could say, and when we go, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it got crazy on the ground pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
I know we had one Ranger injured on the fast rope end, and that created the scene. And then I guess the all call went out, and it seemed like everybody in Mogadishu had an AK-47, and they all ran to the scene.
And that was their strategy, which we found out later. They actually had set up a system where once they knew where we were hitting the target, and again, they learned this over time, right? When I talk about this, I try to compare it to sports, right? If you keep running the same play, the defense is going to adapt to that play, right? They understand, okay, this formation means this is what they're going to do, so here's how we counter that. It works the same way in the military. And so having done it 6 times, they obviously understood, okay, the helicopters all go to a target. That's where, they're going to put people on the ground. They're going to try to apprehend folks. If we can pin them in there, then, we might have some chance of
Plus, they were blocking roads, so the
Right.
ground convoy was
Absolutely.
having trouble.
Yep. So we found out after that was their strategy. Once they knew where the target was, they were all going to close on it, and it worked pretty well, actually.
Well, the Blackhawks stayed on station. In fact, one thing I've never known is what was the purpose of y'all? If there's going to be a ground convoy for the exfil, what was the purpose of y'all remaining on station like you did?
So we kept 2 attack little birds and 2 Blackhawks over the target for fire support. So
Okay.
the little birds, they've got miniguns and rockets,
Right.
and they're going to be slightly further out in terms of their restricted fire areas. Where the Blackhawks were being used, and honestly, hindsight being 2020, it wasn't a great way to do this, and it's not being done anymore, at least not in urban environments. They were being used for both the miniguns, which I don't think they used the miniguns a lot, but they had snipers on board. So it's a great stable platform for the shooter, but it's a 50-something foot long target for people on the ground that have weapons. Mm-hmm. And you can't fly fast, because if you're flying fast, your shooter can't hit anything. So the speed is less than what you would fly if you were, just trying to avoid fire. We're probably flying 50 knots, right? Which may seem fast to someone on the ground, but that's really slow for an aircraft. Mm-hmm. And it makes the aircraft much more vulnerable to ground fire.
And how far above ground were you?
Very low. I mean,
Okay.
the Blackhawks had to stay 150 feet and below.
Okay.
And the little birds, I think, were 300 feet and above, which worked out great. I mean, we'd done it, at that point, probably 50 times counting rehearsals, and never had any close calls in terms of mid-airs.
Were you just flying racetracks?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had. I can when I was in Baghdad in '04. I can remember being on a court on a search mission in Sadr City area, and they had changed all the TTPs because the racetracks got predictable apparently for ground fire, and so they were flying figure eights, and they were also altitude changes, and they had gone through all kinds of machinations to try and make sure the bad guys on the ground didn't have a predictable means of assessing, where the flight was going to be.
Right. Now, my flight, because I'm not one of these 4 aircrafts over the target. I've already gone in and I put my guys on the ground, but I took my flight north of the city for exactly what you're talking about. And one of the guys criticized me. He said, "Hey, we need to stay closer to the target so we can see what's going on." And I'm like, "No, we're a contingency force at this point. I'm going north of the city where there's no threat. Because if we're just doing circles up there, why would I want to be right here in the middle of this fight and put our entire flight at risk?" And it was obviously the right decision to do what I
choose. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a hump day. And you know the deal. If we're playing the camel at the beginning of the show, that means come around the 3rd hour, we jump on into a thing called the Grand Council, where I bring in some of my brethren in conservative media, and we hash out the questions of the day. And yeah, so Dale Jackson's out today, but sitting in for him, I'll call the roll on this one, the powerfully pugnacious pundit and publisher of the Trustful Tribune, host of the Tribune Unscripted podcast, Scott Buttram. Are you there?
I am here.
You are indeed. We appreciate your presence. Thank you, sir. And then turning south down by the Gulf of America, host of the Jeff Poor Show on FM Talk 106.5. Oh, by the way, editor-in-chief of 1819 News, and does a lot of other media stuff too. Even has a history with Breitbart and Tucker Carlson. That would be Jeff Poor. Are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed, and we're glad. I pronounce a quorum. Hit it, man.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Ba-da. Ba-da. All right, fellers, we're all in. Questions each. I'm going to let Jeff Poor say you got it first, man. What do you got?
I'm probably still in Scott's question here, but we got to talk Alabama High School Athletic Association. It's been brought to my attention. The AHSAA is acting in bad faith here. They're telling these schools that, sure, you have injunctive relief here to go and play these Choose Act student athletes, but if we win this court case, you're gonna have to forfeit those games when it's all said and done.
Those terms.
I mean that feels a little like I said, acting in bad faith. Is there anything that can be done there?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and say, Scotty, since you joined us, and this is also a topic that's near and dear to your heart, you take it first. What do you got?
Well, I would just final question. Is there anything that can be done there? I think we're about to see that when they go into session.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't think anybody at this point knows what this product is going to look like after the legislature gets through with them. I think they will be changed beyond recognition. And Jeff, to answer your question, I think this is yet another big old bucket of gasoline thrown on this fire by the AHSAA.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the tone deafness of the AHSAA right now. Can they not read the room? And so, Jeff, from what you just said about whether or not they would lay out this, we're going to get punitive against you one way or the other. And if you play a kid who's a Choose Act kid, school choice, for those who don't know, Choose Act is school choice in Alabama. If you have a school choice option to go to another school, the current law specifies you should be allowed to play sports. And it actually says the AHSAA cannot stop that. And so if the AHSAA wants to try and preempt that, and they got slapped down by the court with an injunction, but then, oh, by the way, they say, well, okay, you play them, but if we win, we're going to avoid all your wins. That's asinine. Yeah. That is absolutely bad faith. I don't think any court's going to let them get away with that. And this case won't be tried before the next legislative session. So they just got themselves a whole lot of whoop coming, and they opened the can themselves.
I kind of
a quick question.
Go ahead, Scott.
I got a quick question for Phil, because he's got a law degree. Phil, do the parents of these kids, if this is proven that the AHSAA threaten these schools if they play those kids and we win, you're going to have to forfeit the games you played them. Do those kids' parents not have an actionable situation here?
If they actually take the action, yes, I think they would, because you're going to have two things to have any lawsuit. You're going to have a cause of action, and you're going to have damages. So if they just say it now but never do a thing about it later, all it is like,
Right.
nah, nah, nah. But at the same time, if they come back later and actually try to do something like this and void the wins, then you've got booster clubs that have invested. You've got stadiums that may have been built. You got sponsors that may have dropped off sponsorship, and you got kids that are vying for scholarships who could see their win records affected. And I think all of that comes into play. And there's a lot of things that are second and third order effects to having a winning season that you can have taken away from you, because we're not talking about one win. We're talking about a season. So
Right.
there's a lot of stuff here, Jeff.
And defer to you on the law degree thing here too. It looks like they're getting the High School Athletic Association is getting very bad legal advice, because they could have not done anything and just wrote it out, and that's probably what they should have done.
Yeah.
But they were, or they chose to, just ignore the law and go about it themselves. Why wouldn't they be the ones to take the state to court? Why wouldn't they go seek injunctive relief from the federal courts or whoever they think that gives them the power to do this, and say, "Hey,
That's
they're
right.
interfering with
That's a
our
great point.
ability"? Well, why didn't they explore that option at least? Because it just looks like they are operating above the law either way.
I don't know if they even have legal advice. I feel like they're acting like a pro se prison defendant. I mean, this is like just the asinine behavior that we're seeing. What they really need is a life coach. They need somebody to explain to them just how to actually get along with others. And they don't seem to have any idea what that means. What are you thinking there, Scott? I hear you. So I'd say something.
I know the Grand Council's just going completely off the rails right now. What we may have here, gentlemen, and this is evidently not old news, but not new news, but it was new to me. I think Ben Thomas at AL.com, the prep sports guy there, reported on this a couple of months ago or so. What we may have here, gentlemen, is a really bad problem with inexperienced leadership. Jeff, you've referenced and talked about Josh Moon referencing, the federal court years ago that told AHSAA you can't have a white athletic association and a black when y'all got to combine. Well, part of the other part of that agreement was that they would have both a white and a minority at the top, number 1 and 2, that they were supposed to have that. So that has carried on all the way through Steve Savarese, who was the executive director for, I don't know how many years, probably decades. Well, when he stepped down, Alvin Biggs was the number 2 guy, and Alvin Briggs was black. So he moved up and became executive director. That moved Kim Vickers up, who now became the number 2 person, and she was white. When Briggs stepped down, following the historical secession here, Kim Vickers should have moved to executive director. Instead, this board, filled with superintendents, some of whom have been very vocal against school choice, by the way, decided to just go hire another director. They hired Heath Hartman from Oxford, who was, I think, a high school principal there. That's the executive director making all of these decisions. Kim Vickers had to train him for his job because he didn't know how to do the job. Now, this is according to the federal lawsuit Kim Vickers filed a few months ago, by the way. She says she had to train him for his job. He turns around and hires an Oxford administrator who had worked under him, who was black, made him number 2. So now they've met the requirement. They skip over Kim. They have got a number 1 and a number 2 with both probably a year's experience, maybe.
Wow.
That's who's running the show.
Yeah, that's That's a
Which,
mess.
oh, by the way, if you've got a central board that wants to manipulate their director and assistant director, get you a couple of very inexperienced ones. It makes it a lot easier to manipulate them.
Well, and
So,
they've always been like
this
the
may be part
sports
of the
mafia.
problem.
They're the sports mafia in Alabama, and they've always thrown their weight around like nobody could say a thing about it. And this felt to me like an entitlement moment where they felt like the old days were still here and they're not. And this has turned into a complete filibuster on one question, but it's been a good one. Hey, I'll tell you what, let me ask one quick question before we go. Since we're talking about evil influences in the education arena, I got about 2 minutes before we go to the break. So the AEA, the teachers union in Alabama, the AEA got involved in the mayor's race in Mobile. $100,000 donation for Barbara Drummond, which, by the way, failed, although it was a daggum close race, but it failed. And now Spiro, how do you pronounce his name? Cheriogatis?
Cheriogatis.
Yeah, Cheriogatis got elected by roughly about 1.5%, I think. Anyway, the AEA getting involved in a mayor's race. Now, granted, Barbara Drummond is one of their people, but quick thoughts on the AEA slinging money at mayors. Jeff, you first.
Well, and it matters because, what if they wanted to put a charter school in or something
That's
like
right.
that, and there's a zoning problem all of a sudden, right? Or there's something like that. So it does matter. I think it was if you're the AEA and you're looking at this and you're thinking, we don't usually get in mayor's races, but it's a win-win for them because if they win, they get the W, and if they lose with Drummond, well, she's still in the Alabama legislature. She still sits on ed policy.
Yeah,
and they keep her in their good graces.
Real quick, what you got there? About a minute, Scotty.
Everything Jeff said, though, I will say Drummond was a blind yes vote for AA anyway. So
yeah, I mean, it really was. It was gross.
AEA hates their money. Let's just say that. They hate their money.
Well, they hate their members, but they love their members' money. How about that? But one quick thing that I did see earlier, we were talking about it on the show, is the mayor and city council in Mobile appoints members to the library boards in that area, and you know how the teachers union feels about library board issues of late. So there's that too. All right, we got to take a break. We're on round one being complete of the Grand Council. We'll come back with round two with Jeff Poor, Scott Buttram, and little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
So I've got my flight and I'm north of the city. Now, north of the city is not a long distance. It's probably a mile.
Right.
And we're up there orbiting basically on standby. I mean, when you got assets like that, if you could keep them on hand as a ground force, keep them on hand, right? Because you never know when you might need some kind of helo support. And then I get called back in when the first Black Hawk gets shot down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you were flying what, Super 6-4?
Right.
And Super 6-1, your friend Donovan, right?
Right.
So he's the first one to go down.
And Cliff Walcott.
Yeah, and Cliff Walcott. And then you were, I think you were directed in to replace him.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have a sniper on board. So we're going in simply to use our minigun down close to try to provide fire support for the guys on the ground. That's what our mission has now become, which that was not our mission prior to that. But again, you adapt and you do what needs to be done to try to help the force that you're supporting.
And you've got a full crew?
4, yeah. 2 crew chiefs and 2 pilots.
All right, so Super 6-1 is down. What do you remember about Super 6-1, hearing it over the air, and recognizing that one of them's already down?
Yeah, I mean, I've always called myself an eternal optimist. It never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Cliff and Donovan would be dead. I just assumed that, they took a round, they're going down, they're going to land the aircraft somewhere, we'll get them recovered, and we'll all go debrief this thing when this is over. But obviously now we've lost a bird, which is the first time that this happens for us. There had been another Black Hawk shot down by 10th Mountain Division previously with some fatalities, but it wasn't our unit. And it, I've always used the phrase big sky, little bullet. You don't think it can necessarily happen to you until there's enough volume of fire where it's going to happen to you. And there's also a search and rescue bird shot down in the middle of all this that then heightens that even more, because now they've shot down 2 aircraft in about 5 minutes, and we're going into this fray. This is getting real, really fast. And I remember telling the crew chiefs, because I I've got control of their guns from up front. So I've got an arming switch. And I armed the guns, and I said, okay, you're armed, but we got friendlies all over the ground down here. So we can't go in here and just blasting away. You know, when we see bad guys, we got to get situationally aware so we know where all of our forces are before you start launching 6,000 rounds a minute downrange.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in an urban environment, I don't want to say it's impossible, but right on the rooftops, it's really difficult to sort all that out because, first of all, they're all taking cover. So, you know, they're not standing out there waving at you. They're all taking cover. So trying to figure out where everybody was would have probably taken us a while. In the end, we only made it around 3 times when we got nailed by an RPG.
So RPG to the tail rotor, right?
Right.
In the movie, and later I want to get your thoughts on the movie, like I said, but in the movie, there's a scene where you took the RPG to the tail rotor, but initially you thought it was going to be okay until you started getting some play in the pedals and stuff like that. So what were your first thoughts, and how did that I mean?
Well, I knew we were hit, and I always tell people if you want to know what it feels like, drive too fast in a parking lot and hit a speed bump. That's what it felt like. It felt like a jolt to the airframe because you don't see it. Usually what they were doing is they let us fly by and then they emerge from the doorway and shoot. So you're probably not going to see the launch. The crew chief might see it depending if they're looking in the right direction. And then the reason they hit both of us in the tail is they're not leading us enough. So that 50 knot magical speed was just ballistically perfect for them to shoot at I'm sure they were aiming for center mass.
Which the crazy thing is an RPG is not usually designed to take out aircraft.
No, I mean, but if you fire enough of them, eventually, they say they fired 150 at us on that mission. Now, not just at me, but on that mission. That's how many RPGs.
I never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they went all in. They thought we want to bring down a helicopter, and they were successful. So anyway, back to your question. Initially, I feel like I hit a speed bump, knew we were hit. I can see the airfield. It's 2 miles ahead of us. And looking in the cockpit, everything's okay. Controls were all responding. But what had happened was the gearbox had been blown apart. And, you know, it's like a transmission in your car, right? If you blow your transmission apart,
you ain't going anywhere.
Not for very long. Once those gears, you know, run without oil for any period of time, they're going to self-destruct. And that's what happened. And then when the tail rotor left the aircraft, again, that's impossible to describe. If you haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. I mean, it's just violent spin of the aircraft, out of control.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, coming back to round 2 of the Grand Council. And since I think I look back on it, I think, Scott, you opined at length about things that were asked, but I don't think you've actually asked a question of your own. So I'm just going to go straight to you. What you got? What's your question for the council?
I'll make this a short question. It is 2-part. What office? I was gonna make it too easy. What office will Bruce Pearl eventually run for? That's part 1. Part 2. Does Auburn lose their blue blood basketball card after Pearl steps down?
Oh God! All right, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna let Jeff go first. What you got, Jeff?
So
I want both of you all be to answer.
Okay, I'm gonna answer. Don't worry. Go ahead.
I think there were some eligibility questions. And I know he looked seriously at running for Senate. I know he made trips to D.C. I know he met with the NRSC to run for United States Senate. But it wasn't there yet. What I do think you'll see is in 2 or 4 years, I think you'll see Mike Rogers step down.
Yep.
I think he'll run for that congressional seat. I think he'll win it easily. I could see that happening. As far as Auburn's basketball program, I mean,
right?
It is, yeah.
As far as Auburn's basketball program goes, I mean, Stephen Pearl is probably who we would have picked anyway. You know, just who else is out there and who's going to take a job at Auburn University doing basketball?
I I mean, they were a Final Four team. I think we could find somebody, but at the same time, go back to the
The
politics
blue
thing.
blood.
Well,
the blue blood
it's a
program.
culture
I
where
see what you're saying.
football is still going to always be king.
Oh yeah,
you know?
absolutely. We're not Duke. I mean, this is yes.
Right.
So so back to the political. That's exactly what I predict. So I'm gonna go ahead and layer it a little bit more. I'm gonna say that the results of his efforts in D.C. Are going to garner him some particular Trump appointment. I don't know what, an ambassadorship perhaps. I could see him being a special emissary to Israel. I could see there being something where he could say, I was Trump appointed to, and that looks really good. And it gives him a chance to sort of earn his GOP chops. And then I agree with Jeff. That's exactly what I'm hearing. And what I'm speculating is that Mike Rogers is probably nearing the end of his time in Congress. And that is the district that Bruce Pearl lives in. And I think if he ran, he would take it by a landslide, especially, like I said, if he can earn his GOP chops on it. As for basketball, my brother, War Eagle, and I do think Stephen Blue Blood, what a thing to say. I do think, though, that Stephen Pearl was the only choice. And he was already there as a part of the staff that took him to the Final Four. And I think that he has a chance now to, and I'm sure that was part of Bruce Pearl's exit. What's he now called, like an ambassador for the sports program?
Right. Yeah.
I think that was part of the negotiation, and give his son the chance. But I think his son has also earned the chance. So I'm not overly concerned about it. Blue blood. You're just jealous. Your own thoughts. Okay, what do you think of there, Scotty B? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I honestly did not know politically. I will say this, and I don't think it's any secret. I am absolutely 100% aligned with Bruce Pearl on his stance on Israel. We are simpatico there. I think he would make a good congressman. I would like to see him in D.C. I think he could be effective, and I think he'd do a good job. Have no idea where, but I think that's the ultimate goal. That's what it feels like. Does Auburn have to give up their blue blood card when Pearl leaves? I'm just an Alabama fan. We're not part of the basketball blue blood. We're just a bunch of hard hat guys. So I don't know. I'm just a street brawler from Tuscaloosa.
I love it. I love the self-deprecating. I'm just a Bama fan. We just play football thing. Come on. If you guys were spanking it in basketball, you'd be crowing about that too.
That's how all Alabama fans are. We have a basketball team in Tuscaloosa. I didn't know that. Roll Tide.
Hey, you know who does know it? Bruce Pearl.
That's a good point. The iron, what they call the IBOB, the Iron Bowl of basketball. All right, hey, real quick though, we got about 2 minutes. Speaking of the RTR crowd, AJ McCarron running for office, coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck? And is this an entitlement mentality or is it legit? And what's he going to run for? Jeff, you have the inside scoop because 1819 ran the article. I think you even wrote it, didn't you? But tell me, what do you know?
Lieutenant governor.
He
polls really, yes, he polls real well. He doesn't want to go to D.C. I think he flirted with Senate. I think he also flirted with Congress for that Jerry Carl seat. Well, it's Barry Moore, but it used to be Jerry Carl.
Yeah,
and run against him. I think it's going to be a lieutenant governor. Like I said, he polls real well. You would think he's probably going to have Senator Britt on his side there, and this won't be a race. I mean, if the polling I've seen is
what have you
accurate,
seen? What have you seen?
I've seen some polling, and he just pulls up the charts. It's like Tommy Tuberville all over again, which would be weird to have Tuberville as governor and AJ McCarron as lieutenant governor.
Wow. Okay, so all of a sudden, the folks that have been running for a while for lieutenant
They're
governor.
In trouble. There's one wrinkle here, though. One wrinkle,
and
does he meet the residency requirements in the Alabama Constitution? Which probably does, but that's going to be one of the hurdles he's going to have to figure out.
So his house is at the Floribama. You don't know which side. That's where we are right now. Okay.
Well, I mean, he bounced around NFL, UFL for a while. So where was he registered to vote? I mean, these are questions. Did he have a homestead exemption for his property in Mobile? Those are the questions that are going to have to be figured out if he does run.
And that's the music is playing. That means the preacher's got to quit preaching. So we are taking a break. Appreciate you both. Thanks so much. That was Jeff Poor from 1819 News and the Jeff Poor Show down on FM Talk 106.5 in Mobile, and Scott Buttram, publisher of the Trustful Tribune, host of the Tribune Unsolicited podcast, and me. We'll be right back. What do they call that? Counter rotation or something, where you're trying to restore stability?
Well, the tail rotor is there to counter the torque of the main rotor system. Again, if you think about a drill, people are familiar with that. You pull the trigger, you can feel it want to turn. That's torque. So the same thing's happening to a helicopter, obviously with a lot more force. The tail rotor is mounted horizontally to push against that force that's wanting the airframe to spin. Once that tail rotor is gone, there's nothing. So essentially, if you were left unaffected by anything else, what would eventually happen is the airframe, minus wind drag, obviously, would be spinning as fast as the rotor blades are in the opposite direction. Yeah. That's essentially once it reaches equilibrium. That will never happen, but that's how much force you're talking about here. And I remember looking at my feet, trying to convince myself, you're doing the right thing in terms of which pedal you're pushing, but it is having no effect on the aircraft. And then I'm like, okay, we lost the tail rotor. Again, this is something you can't train that. There's no, you can't do it in a simulator. I mean, we can do a loss of tail rotor in a simulator, but you can't do the violent effects, the physical violent effects of the airframe in a simulator. But I knew what had happened, and the only thing you can do is shut the engines off, because again, that's what's creating that torque. So if you can remove that force, it'll stop that spin, but now you have no engines. Yeah. So that's not good either, especially at low altitude. But it's what you have to do. You can't possibly maintain control of the aircraft if it's just spinning out of control. So in a Black Hawk, we don't have control of the engines on the flight controls. So the co-pilot or the non-flying pilot has to shut the engines off. So I looked over at Ray and I said, we lost the tail. We better pull them off. And he knew. He was an experienced guy. I actually had more experience than I did, and pulled the engines off. But we're spinning so fast that he said, and we talked about it on the ground afterwards, typical instructor pilots. He said, we're spinning so fast, the centrifugal force was causing him to not be able to lift his arms up over his head, which is where the engine power control levers are. So he got one to idle and got one about halfway off, which slowed the spin but didn't stop it. And now, with no engine power, we're falling out of the sky like a Coke machine. And all I could do is try to keep the aircraft from flipping upside down, which, again, I don't know if anything I did made a difference, honestly, but all I can tell you is we crashed right on the wheels. And that's the only reason I'm still here.
All right, so you're on impact. Now, you said something on the ground. Did Ray make it?
Yeah,
okay.
We all survived the crash.
Okay.
The crew chiefs were hurt really bad because they don't, first of all, they don't have as good as seats, at least in that version of the aircraft. It's been improved since. And they're probably not strapped in, meaning, they operate on what we call monkey harnesses back there.
Yeah.
So they're on a strap, but they're not strapped into their seats, which have, all the crash survivability.
I use those as a jump master in Black Hawks.
Because it allows you to move around and do the things you need to do. And, you get in the seat when you have to land. Well, they didn't, obviously we're not planning to land, so they're probably not strapped in, or at least not likely that they're both strapped in. So, that violent crash, they were probably not going to make it. But Ray, he was not hurt as bad as I was. And we're talking, once I regained consciousness, we're talking about what happened, and there was no reason to talk about what happened. We should have been talking about, hey, the heck, we're going to survive the next 5 minutes here. But we did, and that's when he explained what he had tried to do. And then he was able to get himself out of the cockpit. There's no way I could get out. I had a femur fracture, crushed vertebrae in my spine. It's hard to get out of a Black Hawk cockpit when you're healthy. Mm-hmm. With those injuries, there's no way. So I just thought, I'm just going to fight it out from the cockpit.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show. It goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. And I am talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn's, right across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Oh, by the way, that's just the radio, especially even when you add in North Georgia, Mississippi. All that to say, bunch of radio. But then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going the World Wide Web live streaming the show, looking at us, staring at us on audio and video, by the way. And that's some places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then the podcasters, my gosh, 353,000 downloads of the podcast. That's amazing. We take the show every day and podcast it, and a bunch of y'all catch it after the fact and pick up what you missed. So that being said, I say all those things, not just to be campy or cute, but because what I'm trying to do is portray that we can see it, we know it, and we appreciate it more than you could possibly imagine. This audience is the reason why we exist. So thank you very much. Okay, JP, I got to ask you.
What's that?
I got to ask you. AJ McCarron.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Listen, the fact that he's a football player matters not to me. I served in the state legislature with Rich Wingo, who was a great legendary player at Alabama and went on to play for the Packers, had a great career. Love Rich Wingo, very conservative, loves the Lord. And anybody in our audience who knows Rich Wingo knows what I'm saying. So, and then, of course, Coach Tuberville. I love him as a senator. He's going to be a great governor. AJ McCarron, what do we know? What do we possibly know about him that could say, okay, he'd be good at something for us?
Well, he was very vocal. He lives in Mobile, so he was very vocal in support of the Republican candidate for Mobile mayor who just won. So from what we have seen of his outspokenness in politics, it has been strong conservative Republican. So I think he'll for sure be on the right side. But him as a person too, like he's been big in the podcasting world at post career, but he's one of my favorites to listen to in terms of he tells you like it is. Like he there's no sugarcoating. Even talking about Alabama football and the players that he personally knows, if he sees something he doesn't like, he tells you like it is, and he's rough around the edges. So that leads me to believe if we can get him geared, fighting a good fight in politics, and he's on the conservative side, I think he could be a hard worker, a fighter for conservative issues that matter.
Okay, so let me jump on that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So the mayor's race in Mobile is fresh. That's new.
Mm-hmm.
Where was he 4 years ago on politics? Where was he when the 2020 election results were coming in? Where was he on issues of the day during the Biden administration's, clamping down on all things normal?
Well, that's the thing, because he is he hasn't actually officially retired, but he stopped playing in 2024. So his post football to now politics career is still really young.
And where was he?
He was on the the UFL St. Louis Battlehawks. He actually won MVP, I think, not too long ago. So he was in the USF league or the UFL. Sorry, it's now the UFL post NFL career. But he was a backup quarterback for several years in the NFL, from the Bengals to some other teams as well. But he was a stud in the UFL just as recently as 2024. So I say that to say we may not know his political beliefs as much because he just now has been post football and now into politics.
So what we're going to also look at here's what's going to happen. I guarantee you, opposition researchers are going crazy right now. People like Wes Allen, who was on the show yesterday, our current Secretary of State, is been running for lieutenant governor now for months. Andrew Sorrell, very conservative guy in the state house, is running for lieutenant governor. Rick Pate, who's the ag commissioner, very conservative guy. So these guys all have a record. We know where they are and where they've been. We know what they stand for. They're an open book. And they've been around Alabama politics, so we don't have any concern about whether they're rhinos or they're actual Republicans, because those three guys, I know them personally. I know where they stand. All right. That being said, AJ McCarron, the opposition researchers right now, and that's a big part of politics, y'all. Just if you haven't ever heard it, Oppo research is a big deal. They start searching your social media. They start looking at your campaign donations. They start looking at your residency. They look up, whether you've ever been in jail, you've been divorced, whatever else. They're gonna find stuff. What are they going to find? So
That's the thing. I can't think of anything. I mean, I'm sure if there was something out there, most people would know about, but if they do some digging and find something else I'm not aware of.
Where was he from originally? Is he from Alabama?
Mobile.
So he's from Mobile originally.
Mhm.
Where did he play his high school ball? Do you recall? You're going to be looking up, I know, while I'm talking, but St. Paul's, is that where he played? I feel like
that sounds correct.
I think he may have played at UMS Rights or St. Paul's.
He went to
Paul's?
St. Paul's Episcopal, yeah.
And then he went from there to, of course, University of Alabama. Graduated. What year would that be?
2013 was when he when he graduated.
Okay, so he played for Saban.
Yep.
Is he going to have a Saban endorsement?
I don't know. That's interesting. Saban normally doesn't like to touch politics with a 10-foot pole, so who knows? But I mean, it's funny too because we're not just talking about it. Oh, this guy was riding the bench on Bam. No, you're talking about the greatest quarterback career in Alabama history. Now running for politics. So I think if he ran for Senate, the name ID could only take him so far because people know that the Senate is such a high thing. But like some people who aren't normal voters and they go and see Lieutenant Governor, don't know West Sound, don't know AJ. I love AJ McCarron, and they vote for him. Okay. So I feel like the name ID could take him really far.
Name ID is huge
in a Lieutenant Governor role, but I think it wouldn't have taken him far enough to win Senate.
I think name ID is huge. Except that I also will tell you, not everybody in this state is a Bama fan.
That's true.
So the name ID with Bama fans is going to be huge, and the name ID with Auburn and Troy and Jack State and UNA and South Alabama are all going to be like, okay, what do we got?
Who cares?
So let me this while I'm talking for a second. Look up just Google residency requirements for Lieutenant Governor of Alabama, and to see what you find. But I'll so besides the opposition research, I'll also tell you. When Tuberville first ran for the U.S. Senate, me talking to the audience here, when Tuberville first ran for the U.S. Senate, he was an unknown in terms of politics. And I remember saying on the air, I love Coach Tuberville, but I don't know how he votes. All I can do is hope for the best because I think his name ID is going to make him the next U.S. Senator. And it did. And I have been very satisfied. Like I had no voting record to go with because he had no prior politics. And he got in there and I was like, okay, this is good. I'm good with this. And I am. AJ McCarron's the same way. He's a blank slate. There is nothing about his politics except maybe what he might have said on a podcast or a social media post. But then the other question is going to be, and Jeff Port has announced it. But I guarantee you he would not be talking seriously if he hadn't already satisfied himself that he met the residency requirements. So what do you see? Do you see something?
You have to be a resident of the state for at least 7 years immediately before the date of the election.
7 years.
7 years.
Oh, Lord.
Which
he's not going to make that.
He could have been a resident in Mobile and then, just went and played, lived in Cincinnati, had a home in Cincinnati during the season and came back home to Mobile. That feels correct to me.
He's going to have to prove that.
He's going to have to prove that. And he's going to have to prove that, Mobile was his primary residence for all that time.
He's going to have to show that he actually homesteaded his property if he has one here.
Which I believe that AJ's an Alabama guy. So my gut tells me that he would have never had his primary residency be outside of Mobile. But who knows? That's something for the opposition research to dig up, like you said.
Okay. Well, I guarantee you they're already combing the courthouse records right now to see what his taxes say. In fact, we might be able to do that ourselves.
Exactly, yeah. Give me a commercial break.
I'll go figure it out. All right. So AJ McCarron may sure enough wind up being in the mix on a lieutenant governor's race. And I'm curious as to what do we know about what propelled him on this? What are his motivations for suddenly saying, this is my next stop in life. I'm getting into state politics. I mean, Tuberville is going to be the next governor.
Yeah, governor-elect.
Governor-elect. He's governor-elect already. But Tuberville's going to be the next governor. And then the question is going to be, does Tuberville want to do 2 terms?
That's a good question to ask.
He's going to be in his 70s. Does he want to enjoy the fruits of his labors and see his grandkids and spend some time by the lake? Or is he going to do 8 years?
Yeah.
And so whoever comes into the lieutenant governor's race has a definite leg up on being a possible next governor. I don't know, man.
Well, I will say this. I do see some correlations between Tuberville and McCarron from their personalities of, the rough around the edges. We're going to get this done. And somebody like an outsider that is very passionate about what they believe in, and they go to politics. And if somebody would say, well, AJ, well, Tommy, that's not how we do things. Right? I say, well, why not? Let's just get it done. So like, I feel like he has that go get 'em attitude, personality. And if he is truly passionate about conservative, issues, I feel like he could be an asset because he's an outsider of like, we're not going to go by, this tradition. Like, we're going to get it done. And this is how we're going to do it. So I think if he is sincere and is, on the right side of politics and his beliefs, I think he could be a useful asset for Alabamians.
The next question I have that we'll probably never get an answer to is this his idea or did somebody recruit him? Because who recruited him would also matter. And I've seen some people jump into races before that were recruited to be spoilers. I've seen some people jump into races before who were recruited to soften the conservative position or to bring in moderation because they didn't want somebody who was a hardliner. And I think that Andrew Sorrell is absolutely a conservative hardliner. And I think that Wes Allen is a true conservative as well. And Rick Pate, I've never seen him vote legislatively, so I can't say where he stands on all the issues, but he's generally speaking a conservative. Will
Tuberville endorse somebody?
You think Tuberville's going to endorse him?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Will Tuberville say, I want this guy, whoever amongst the field, and say, I want this guy to be my right-hand man? And if he does, will he choose AJ? That's a good question to ask.
Well, that would be a first because we haven't seen a sort of a collaborative ticket, so to speak, in state politics for governor, lieutenant governor. Those are separate races that run. In fact, we have had more than once, like Bob Riley. Bob Riley was the Republican conservative governor who had Jim Folsom, the liberal Democrat lieutenant governor, constantly at odds.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. I tell you what. I guess my last question for you before we go to the break is: how much of your opinion right now is guided by the fact that you're a Bama fan? You're an ardent Bama fan, and you are. I can go in your office and see the things hanging on your wall. How much of your opinion is guided by that?
I'm being honest. If AJ was out and he was endorsing the Democrat mayor for Mobile, I would not be on board with him, even though he was my childhood quarterback. My childhood quarterback for Alabama football was AJ McCarron. So it would pain me if he was a Democrat, but it doesn't look like he is. So we don't have to have that conversation.
Okay. All right. We'll see where it goes. I got text messages coming in. Tell me what your thoughts are. Do you want AJ McCarron to be in a statewide office in the state of Alabama? Does he deserve it? What do you think? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We'll be right back. I did not recall that your co-pilot had made it, but they didn't survive. Am I correct?
Well, they were killed in a firefight.
Yeah, they're all killed in the firefight. Yeah, I remember that now. All right, you're still stuck in the cockpit. I remember, I'm assuming it was when I read it, that you had a kind of an off the books weapon. Didn't you have an MP5 or something like that? Mm-hmm. Was that standard issue or was that
for us?
Yeah, it was. Okay.
Yeah, we used the MP5. They don't use it anymore, I don't think, but that was our we had an M9 pistol and an MP5.
So you wound up having to engage targets yourself while you're on the ground in the cockpit?
Actually, not from the cockpit. That's one area where Black Hawk Down deviates from what actually happened. I mean, I did consult a little bit on the movie, but really not much. I guess if they're going to exaggerate something and make you look better than you actually were, that's a good thing. But yeah, they have me, blasting away from the cockpit. It was amazing how quickly Gary Gordon and Randy Sugart got to the cockpit. There were no Somalis there yet. And that's why I hadn't fired any rounds. I had my MP5. I was ready to go, but nobody had showed up. And then all of a sudden, Gary and Randy are standing next to the cockpit. And I'm like, wow, this is over. There's a rescue force here.
Which is an amazing story in itself. I mean, both of them wound up with the Medal of Honor posthumously. But I recall reading that they both requested 7 times to be put on the ground, knowing full well that there was only going to be 2 of them and no telling how long till the guys of the Rangers got there.
You're right about all of that. And again, I only know about it secondhand because obviously I'm not on the aircraft with them. But they were told initially no, and eventually convinced the leadership that if they were not let in, we were lost. And, you don't know what's in the mind of someone else, but they had to know, hey, this is going to be dicey at a minimum because it took 8 hours for another American to get to our crash site.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about the fact that as you were going down, you could see the airfield roughly 2 miles away, and yet it took 8 hours for anybody to get there.
And it's because, well, we were resource constrained, and there were so many things happening. You had 6-1's crash site, you had the convoy, you had the target, now you had my crash site. So really, the commander's got 4 things that he's got to deal with, and he didn't even really have the resources for one.
By the way, I'm going to chase a rabbit real quick. I don't know if you heard this yet, but the whole base renaming thing that happened.
I was going to bring this up
about Gary Gordon.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant solution. And I just read it a couple days ago.
Yeah. For those who don't know, that Fort Gordon was one of the names that nobody knew was apparently tied to a Confederate. I didn't know that Benning was. I didn't know that Rucker was. I just went and trained there, as I'm sure you probably did. But Fort Gordon got renamed to something, but Fort Gordon's getting its name back for your rescuer, Gary Gordon.
Right.
Yeah. That's I think that's pretty. Now we got to find a Fort Shugart somewhere.
Yeah. They might have to create one. Yeah.
What do you recall about Shugart and Gordon being on the ground? I mean, I've read their story separately. I've read it in your book. But give me and the listeners, when they got on the ground and were talking, what were your thoughts? What was the conversation?
It was brief, purely mission focused. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They knew, hey, look, we got to get him out of the cockpit, meaning me, because I'm too vulnerable there. I'm sitting up, basically up off the ground, elevated, and so that was one of the primary things they wanted to get done, is get me out of there, and then essentially, as well as they could, set up a perimeter. Now, the way the geography of this crash site was, there was a wall right to the right. The nose is pointing forward as I'm sitting here, and there's a wall right to the right. Now, it's just a corrugated tin wall, basically, but still, there's no way for someone to access the site from there. So I believe their decision was, we're going to go secure the left side, put me on the right, and that is in fact where the attack primarily came from, was the left side. So I can hear it, and then I could see Somalis, onesie twosies. I fired all the rounds in my weapon at the Somalis that tried to come in on the right side, but the bulk of the attack came from the left side.
How long were Shugart and Gordon in the mix? I mean, how long until they were actually taken
It's hard
out?
to say. I know there's an official timeline somewhere. I honestly don't recall. Time is so hard to judge when things are in that state of chaos. I would say probably 10 minutes, maybe 15, from the time they showed up to the side of the aircraft to, Gary went down first, and at that point, Randy's almost out of ammunition already. And he came around and he asked me where the crew chief's weapons were, and I told him, and he went in, grabbed one, and then he gave me what I believe was Gary's weapon, which still had rounds in it, because I had fired all the rounds out of my MP5. And then he went around the nose of the bird. He made a quick radio call.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower, man. By the way, the story's up on the screen right now. I gotta say, just now that I have a few minutes, have you seen that story about Macron?
No.
This is President Macron of France. He comes to the UN General Assembly, and he's in New York City. And his motorcade gets stopped because other roads are blocked ahead of him for Trump to be able to get his motorcade through. Well, the New York police are not going to help the French president.
Yeah.
So the New York police are blocking the roads, and they literally would not let the French president through. And he got on the phone while the cameras are rolling. He gets on the phone and calls Trump and goes, yeah, look, I'm actually blocked. I can't get through. Can you tell them to let me through?
that image, he literally looks like some guy trying to call his Uber, like, where are you at?
Yeah.
No, I'm on this street, on this corner.
I'm the one wearing the red tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was some tension between Trump and Macron, because Macron I don't know if you saw, he officially recognized Palestine as a state at the UN, and Trump did not like that. So I wonder if this is some gamesmanship or it's just simple. How do you have that miscommunication, though?
Well, so first of all, it's New York City, so Trump's not going to actually control the police on this.
Sure.
But if it were Washington, D.C., he might get away with something. But I think what you're looking at right now is the French president's motorcade did not plan well.
and they got stuck in a blocked street. And the funny part was you actually have Macron calling Trump on the phone.
So he was calling Trump directly.
He was. He's saying, "Yes, I'm blocked right now. Can you get them to let me through?
Can you please let me through?" I don't know, Macron. Are you gonna recognize Palestine as a state anymore? Maybe take that back, and we'll see what we can do.
I didn't know you did Trump impressions. All right, Dave from Capshaw checks in on the text lines. He says, if Hillary and Kamala ever ran together, it would be cankles and cackles. That's awful. Cankles and cackles. Mark from Decatur says, when we vote AJ in, if he doesn't perform up to our standards, we will have it. We'll get Saban to spank him again. What?
Yeah. Have you seen that clip?
No.
It was during one of the games. Alabama was winning by blowout, so it made it funnier. But Saban was chewing AJ out on the sidelines, and he ended it with just spanking him and then walking away.
No, I never saw that.
Yeah, I think Alabama was
a little
playing
awkward.
Alabama was playing Mississippi State, I think, at home, and he told the story after the fact of him missing a guy wide open, and Saban wasn't happy about it. But yeah, I wonder, can you imagine Saban going down to the State House and saying, "AJ, get out here"?
At the same time, I wonder if there'd be like a muscle memory and he would get out there.
Yeah, probably. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Coach. Hey, coach, how are you? Yes, sir. Wait, yes, sir. Take a lap. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Jack from Huntsville says, we need a governor like DeSantis and as far as possible from Whitmer and Hochul. Senator Tuberville is that man. Jack from Huntsville, there you go. Listen, I tend to agree. I think what you're going to wind up seeing is a Governor Tuberville that's going to be pretty strong. Like, is going to come in there and I'm anticipating cleaning house. Like there's some deep state. Listen, you think there's a deep state in DC? Lord, there's a deep state in Montgomery too. I'll just tell you firsthand there is. But I think there's some deep staters that are already like, what's going to happen? I hear he's going to clean house. Yeah. John from Huntsville checking in says, JP gets a solid A for his awesome performance. Scott Buttram and Jeff Poor get an A+ for their equally brilliant performances, which means today's winner is obviously Phil Williams with an A+ for his magnificent performance. Thank you very much. He says, congratulations, by the way. I don't want AJ McCarron to be our next lieutenant governor because Wes Allen's the right man for the job. All right. That's how he feels.
I feel like I would have gotten a higher grade if I wasn't talking about AJ McCarron.
He knows.
Yeah.
He knows. By the way, the previous text from John from Huntsville, I hadn't seen it. He says, if AJ McCarron gets a Saban endorsement, that proves McCarron's a Democrat.
There is that.
There is that.
Yeah.
Joe in Tennessee says, AJ is married to the former Catherine Webb, an Auburn grad who was a model. They have 3 sons.
Miss Alabama.
What? Okay. I remember seeing her in the stands. I do. But what does that? Are you saying that helps with the voting? It does make for an appealing mail out.
It does.
Family picture, Miss Alabama. He was Mr. Alabama, technically.
Yeah.
Where was he in the Heisman running?
He was, I believe, second in the year he was a finalist. I could be wrong. I'll go check on that.
So he was a finalist.
Yes, he was.
Sandy from Harvest says, I hear there's openings at the UN in the maintenance department. Yes. Yes, there are. I didn't get to it today, but we will talk about it tomorrow. That's my plan.
2013, AJ was runner-up Heisman.
Runner-up Heisman.
So that year he lost to Jameis Winston.
Shag Nasty, the atheist, checking in, sending me something that I can't see. What is this? Open the meme, and what have I got? Okay. That's interesting. He puts like an old Trump wearing Granny's outfit at the walker with a walker and somebody trying to help him saying, I see the benefit causes autism. And they say, sure, Donnie, but where are the Epstein files? Shag Nasty, the atheist. No laughter. Okay. And then Graham from Meridianville says, unfortunately, oh, wait, hang on. What's Graham from Meridianville?
He was driving
saying?
Through Birmingham, was asking what channel we're on.
Oh, yeah. We're not on Birmingham Station anymore. We let that contract go, and we were very glad. We'll get back on Birmingham one day. All right. Listen, nonetheless, there are more of us than there are them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.